Barrett-Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auction, is back in Texas, here in Houston. Now, tonight in Houston, everybody will be paying attention to something happening just up the road. It's the American League Championship Series. It's the Astros going against the Yankees. But this afternoon here in Houston, well, everybody's focus is right here inside the NRG Center. That's because the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction having its second appearance here in the Lone Star State. About 500 cars getting ready to cross the block over the course of the next 3 days, every single one of them selling at no reserve. And as always, we've assembled the best team possible to bring you all the highlights. And we're going to start with a guy who spends an awful lot of time crawling through junkyards looking for gold on his YouTube channel. Here's Steve Magnante.
Well, thanks, Rick. You know, Barrett-Jackson is a far cry from my junkyard crawl videos on YouTube, but something I'm really looking forward to this week, in addition to the muscle cars, the supercars, is the mighty Ford Bronco. Of course, it launched in '66 as Ford's answer to the Jeep CJ and International Scout, and went through 6 generations. We have first gens, second gens, and yeah, lots of 6 generations, including a Raptor at that 418 horsepower, 3-liter, probably the only one in existence, going to get sold right here at Barrett-Jackson.
Yeah, Steve, doesn't matter if it's old or new, the Bronco craze definitely continues here in Texas. All right, time to meet the next 2 members of our broadcast team, and we're going to start with the host of Hoover's Garage on YouTube. It's Tyler Hoover.
Well, we found our way to the salon area where the best of the best sell on Super Saturday here at Barrett-Jackson. And let's just go down the row, starting with this beautiful custom creation from Jeff Hayes, a 1967 Corvette with an LS3 under the hood. But then next to it, you have some original muscle car royalty here, Lot 750, a real LS6 Chevelle. But then you have the latest and greatest from Ford right here, a pair of 2019 Ford GTs with some incredible options, very expensive option cars. But then you go to another custom, Lot 717, a 1957 Chevy pickup truck called Cinderella. And then April is over here with actually her favorite car, an electric Hummer.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable to think this is 100% electric 2022 EV. You can only get them right now at Barrett-Jackson at this auction. Unbelievable. Beautiful build. Just take a look at her. Very boxy and masculine. And you know, older Hummers, 0 to 60 in about 17 days. Not anymore. 0 to 60, 3 seconds. 1,000 horsepower. And they did an incredible job with this Easter egg treasure hunt throughout the truck. You're going to find tons of references to the moon because GM helped build the rovers for the Apollo 11 mission. Such a great ride. And hey, one of the coolest features, it actually does this thing called a crab walk. So it will drive sideways. Great for if you live in a big city like I do in Chicago. You need to get in tight spaces. That's not actually, well, there you go. That is a crab walk. We don't have the keys, so we'll have Tyler demonstrate the crab walk. It's a little intense. Okay, look away, look away, look away.
Yeah, I'll try to look away as much as possible. Much more exciting to watch that on the Hummer. All right, I mentioned we have assembled the best team possible, the greatest broadcast team, and that team is not complete without our own Mike Joy. But this week, well, he can't be on site, so through the miracle of modern technology, he's joining us remotely from his home in North Carolina.
Well, thank you, Rick. As many people in the post-COVID area, I am working remotely this weekend from my home workshop due to a pre-existing family commitment. But I've studied the docket pretty carefully, and I have the same questions you probably do. What will be the star car of this auction? Will it be a Corvette, a Ford GT, a Restomod, or a car that's been faithfully and fully restored? Could it be a Superbird, as surprised us in Vegas? Or an outlier like that Porsche 928 that rocked the block here at Houston last year? That's the big question. And while I can't unsee Tyler crab walking across the carpet, I think it's time to get this party started, Rick, and get to the auction block.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. We will absolutely do that. And up on the block right now, we're starting with a van, a 1993 G20 conversion van from Chevrolet.
Indeed, the G-Series van had a very long life, starting in the early 70s. This one, of course, being in 1993. But the conversion part comes into the fact that it just went to a conversion shop for the addition of windows, a custom interior, and again, the custom van era started in the 70s, but continues to this very day.
Yeah, it's a very interesting subset of the van, motorhome, RV market, where people want some of the, well, let's say the features and the idea of going down the road in something that's not just transportation, something you can park and enjoy, and the conversion van was born. It's smaller than an RV. It's on a regular chassis. It certainly doesn't have all of the recreational vehicle features, but it filled the need for a lot of American families.
That's right, modern vehicles like the Sprinter van, etc. But again, the idea of having a comfortable place on wheels, here it is.
There we go, $6,000 for a 1993 Chevy G20. All right, since we're talking about vans, let's stay in the van world. Our next one up is a 1989 Ford Econoline Club van.
Well, the Ford Econoline went through 3 generations before you get to the 1975 model year with this, the advanced design or forward design nose, which is actually the proboscis that was the longest van nose in the Ford in the van business. Now, the whole point of the long nose was getting the engine out of the cockpit for better service and better accessibility inside. But the Ford Econoline van is the only one made by Detroit that has a full body on frame. The Dodge and Chevy vans are unit construction. These are actually stronger and tougher, potentially for trailer towing.
So this is a full factory build, and the Club Wagon was the absolute top of the line with all of the luxury features that Ford could cram inside this. Has a step bumper and a hitch there for towing. But I think the most interesting part about this van is the odometer. Less than 23,000 actual miles on this.
Hey, you could say that it was Ford and the Econoline that really launched the full-size van craze back in the 60s. You know, I mean, vans have been around for a while. There was the VW van, there were panel trucks, but the concept of the full-size van like this, well, it was Ford that really brought it into prominence. And of course, for a generation that grew up with minivans, well, this is what was before the minivan.
That's right, 1961 was first year for the Econoline Falcon type van, and of course that begat the Chevy and Dodge vans in 64. But again, Ford took a good long look at the microbus by Volkswagen and kind of made it more American with a 6-cylinder engine. But again, that cab forward design where you're sitting up front, great maneuverability in tight quarters.
You talk about the versatility. I mean, just before we saw the conversions, and there was a time when conversions ruled the day with those little round porthole windows in the back, beds laid out, and they were pretty wild in terms of the styling. This, it's pretty simple, actually. This is pretty much a stock model. As Mike mentioned, you know, not a lot of miles on the odometer.
Again, these were available up to the E250 with a 1-ton rating, body on frame construction.
$3,900 for a 1989 Ford Econoline Club. All right, time to check in with the final member of our broadcast team at Barrett-Jackson. Here's Christian Murphy.
Thank you very much, Rick. You know, it's always a privilege when we get to speak to one of the main men. There's two, of course, who put all of this on and make it happen at Barrett-Jackson. We're just with Craig Jackson, Chairman and CEO. Steve's up on the block. Craig, coming off a very hot and successful Houston auction last year, what did you learn about Texans' appetite for this collector car hobby?
Well, you know, it's very diverse. I think you'll see we have more resto-modded pickup trucks, more of cars that people can take out and use, but you definitely see an increase in the SUVs. They were hot and heavy for those last year, but you see a lot of diversity. So, you know, the GTs, we ran 3 of them in a row last year, so here you have 2 19s and 2 05s. So, you know, we tried to emulate a lot of what was very popular last year with some new things. 3 electric Hummers this year were unavailable last year. Now we have 3 of them.
Speaking of diversity, I think, you know, we often focus on the docket being Friday and Saturday, our biggest days. But today really is more a celebration of the hobby at a grassroots level. Today's a day that, you know, anyone could almost get into the hobby.
And that's how we start. It's funny, I was just saying this a little while ago. When we first started on TV, we only showed primetime. And I'd be out talking to people going, oh, I can't afford to go to Barrett-Jackson. We're like, no, there's days before in Scottsdale, before we get into the higher cars. And by TV allowing us to cover this entry, it shows people that you can enter this hobby on whatever level you feel comfortable with. And all we tell people is buy the best car you can so you have the best experience that you can. And small fish become large fish. And some of our best buyers started with a $15,000, $20,000 car just to get into it.
Well, there you have it, Rick. We've heard from the man himself. It's all about the experience. We're really excited for the next couple of days. Thanks for taking them time, and let's take it back up to Rick.
All right, thanks a lot, Murph. Yeah, entry-level day. I love it. A big variety of stuff. Not all of it high dollar, like this truck, a 1995 Ford Ranger that just hammered sold for $4,000. Oh, we mentioned earlier we're going to be on the air for 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Today we have 4 hours here on FYI. Tomorrow we come back for 7 hours, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, live on FYI. And on Saturday, well, we have 2 hours on FYI, and then we come back to be live on History for 5 hours, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You're going to make sure you want to join it, because there's a lot of interesting cars will be crossing the block over the course of this here at NRG Stadium. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with a lot of fun stuff up on the block. This is a car that we have been waiting for all weekend. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Superbird. Well, we're climbing quickly, 400, 425. The number just keeps flying. We're closing in on $1 million. $1.5 million! What a jump! It just leapt from 1.1 million to 1.5. A knockout blow. Sold! Well, I can tell you that gentleman wanted the car. He just put his fist down and said, "This is my car." Yeah, that was a great moment in Las Vegas. Came out of nowhere. Yeah, we thought it was going to be big. Didn't know it was going to be that big. And check this out. This is a Superbird that will be selling here this week at Barrett-Jackson in Houston. A 1970 Plymouth Superbird. Lot number 730, that'll be up on the block this Saturday. So you're going to want to make sure you join us for that one as well. Who knows what number that will bring. Up on the block right now, we got a 2007 Mercedes-Benz GL 450.
Well, the SUV trend was such a major sales phenomenon in the States that it spread to Europe, resulting in things like this. Now, these are bank vault quiet, and on a driver's side, on the window glass, something very interesting is the use of dual plate glass. We can see right here, there's actually a ridge between the inner and outer layers, which actually creates an isolation effect for a bank vault quiet interior. That's part of the trick of how they got it done.
This was Mercedes' first attempt at a full-size 3-row SUV. Not body on frame, it is a unit body car. My wife had one of these, really enjoyed it, hauling our two kids and their friends to and from school and activities. These are great, and I'm not scared off by the mileage. 85,000 on the clock on this one. It's, you know, certainly it's well broken in, but this has a lot of life left to it.
Solid power, 335 horsepower during this era. They had a bigger engine you get a little bit later on, but this 450, you know, that's enough power to get this up and move it around.
And this one looks to be original paint, so a nice pure example.
$13,000 to that gentleman right there who says he feels the need for speed. And with that, we're going to check in with April Rose.
Things are getting spicy here right now in the staging lanes. Check out this 1999 Corvette in torch red, which was the most popular color in '99. Sold about 4,000 of them. She's got her stock LS1. You could only get with a 6-speed manual, Z51 suspension. Now take a peek inside. Really comfortable black and red leather seats, new Bluetooth sound, very cool factory heads-up display. It actually projects the readouts onto the windshield, which you can customize what you want up there. Now, Rick, what do you think? Little red Corvette, party like it's 1999. If you're a Prince fan, you can't pass this one up.
No, and I tell you what, that C5, one of my favorite eras for the car. I love the curves on that. That's out in the McGuire staging lanes, and up on the block right now, we've got a dune buggy that's getting a lot of attention from 1966.
This one, being a 1966, is right from the very beginning. I believe 64.5 was the beginnings of the Myers-Manx and all of the imitations. Now, something you got to remember, these are based on a Volkswagen Beetle chassis, but that chassis has to be shortened about 6 inches in order to fit underneath this compact body, and also gives it better maneuverability off-road, which is what these are born for. But yeah, you can drive these on the street if you don't mind being a little breezy.
Yeah, creature comforts, never mind. No side windows, no side curtains. You did get a little bit of a top there, and there you go. There were so many of these made, and they were so easy to build because that fiberglass body just bolts onto a stock Volkswagen Bug floor pan.
You know, I'm a Mopar guy. These taillights, 1964 Dodge Polara, right there.
Well, there goes $12,000 for a Volkswagen dune buggy, I believe based off a 1966 Volkswagen chassis. It's got all that look, that great color, that metallic pearl orange, and away it goes. We're going to take a quick break as well, but coming up, check this out. We got a 1986 Chevy El Camino custom pickup truck that'll be crossing the block. This is one of the original Kyle Conquistas, so looking forward to seeing this as it hits the block.
The all-new line of Barrett-Jackson merchandise and apparel is now available. From road rallies to the office, there are many stylish options for the car lover. Available year-round or online at shopbarrettjackson.com.
Back here in Houston in the NRG Center, and up on the block right now, it's Corvette time. We've got a 1996 Corvette convertible.
Well, near the end of the C4 Corvette reign, which started in 1984, but as the later you get, the better they are. 6-speed manual transmission, no more of that 4.4 plus 3 stuff, and a full 330 horsepower, which is 100 more than the 230 horse these things debuted with back in the early times. But again, a nice example, very clean.
A lot of people kept their Corvettes in the garage and only took them out on sunny days, but some owners use these as daily drivers, and they were certainly a supercar you could drive every day. That's how this one acquired 70,000 miles, but looks none the worse for wear. So somebody get a good bargain right here.
You know, you might wonder how the same 350 cubic inch engine can make another 100 horsepower in just 10 years' time. Well, it comes down to cam timing, better cylinder heads, and better intake manifold. But again, it all started with that 2-port injected 350 back in '85, which only had 230 horse, which was still a pretty peppy car. With 330, this thing will feel kind of like a rocket ship if you're not used to high-performance cars.
In 1996, you actually had your choice of 2 different engines. There was a 300 horsepower model, and then there was the 330. To get the 330 horsepower edition, you'd pay about another $1,500 or so on top of the base price. And of the 21,000 sold that year, about 6,000 folks opted for the bigger engine, and this is one of them.
That would be the LT4, right on. Great engine, reverse cooling, roller cam. This one does have aftermarket exhaust.
Well, that is the top seller easily on the day. That 70,000 miles, I think, is what folks appreciated. The big horsepower of 330, $29,000 for a 1996 Corvette. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Well, I'm going to have my cameraman come in here and try and recreate a scene from a famous movie opening here. I'll give you a second to guess. That is Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. In the opening scene, he drives off in one of these, but he puts it away and buys a '63 Buick Riviera to get trashed as he fixes the bar. But obviously, this was the car to have in the late 80s. The Bruno Sacco design is gorgeous and timeless, and it had the latest technology, Mercedes always being the best of the best. The first car ever equipped with ABS, and you see next to that, there's a tank. That is for the rear hydraulic suspension, so an extra cushy ride. But then there's my favorite feature inside here. The engine, of course, will last forever. 100,000 miles is just broken in on these. But you see these 2 horns right here? This car has town and country horns. So you flip a button inside, you have 1 tone. Then you flip it the other way. You flip it the other way, you have 2 tones. a two-tone horn. Cool feature.
One of those subtle things. If you don't know, you don't know it exists. All right. We appreciate that. Tyler, up on the block right now, we've got a 2006. This is a custom chopper from Orange County Choppers.
Well, it used to be that you bought a Harley-Davidson or a used one and rebuilt, but now virtually everything can be purchased brand new from an aftermarket supplier. So this is an aftermarket chopper, again, made by Paul Touton and the folks at Orange County Choppers. Belt-driven, 1,000cc V-twin. Looks like a Harley engine, but it's completely aftermarket. Ain't life grand?
And it's never been ridden. It only has 2 miles on it. It was won through the Oregon Lottery. Orange County Choppers, of course, America's most famous Orange County is in California. There's an Orange County in Florida and several other states, but these bikes were customized in Middletown, New York.
$18,000 makes that the number 2 sale of the day for that 2006 Orange County Chopper Custom. All right, a little while ago, April previewed a Corvette, and now it's up on the block, a 1992 350 300 horsepower.
That's right. This is the LT1, not the LT4. And if the hood were open, we would see this one have a natural aluminum intake manifold. The LT4 with a 330 horse has a red intake manifold. But speaking of red, this is the original paint. This is a very well-preserved example. Automatic transmission, no stick shift here.
Yeah, very typical Corvette with the Cuisinart wheels, as we sometimes called them. 300 horsepower, 4-speed automatic, and it's had an upgraded radio, JVC radio added with Bluetooth capability as it got modernized. There's the lift-off roof. Pretty car.
And speaking of that lift-off roof, there was an optional translucent roof. This is the basic colored one. I kind of prefer this. It makes more of the fastback shape of the body. But of course, you don't see the sun through it.
I should mention April actually previewed a C5 that's coming up in just a couple of cars. So this is the C4 range. You know, those red Corvettes, yeah, they look a little alike, but there's a pretty significant difference between a C4, the 4th generation Corvette, and the C5 that April previewed to be up on the block pretty soon. But this one had a good long run, the C4 version.
I say the only Corvette I've ever owned, I had a 1985. It was a Tuneport 305 or 350 car with the automatic, and my life changed. I went from driving a Pinto. The best thing about the C4 is the hatchback. You go shopping at Albertsons or Vons if you live in LA like I did. You load your groceries here, and I'll tell you to say, ladies look at you when you drive a Corvette. I kid you not. From a Pinto to a Corvette, my life changed.
Yeah, solid run for these. Once again, as you mentioned earlier, they start off pretty anemically in the horsepower range, but as time went along, it just got better and better. $10,500 for a 1992 Corvette. All right, rolling up behind it, this is a 1988 Chevy Suburban, and you think about it, the Suburbans had a really long run in terms of having a nameplate out in the marketplace.
It sure did. I think 1934 was the first use of the Suburban name by General Motors. And in fact, I think it's the longest running name in automotive, the industry so far. And again, this is a half-tonner, the Silverado 10. These are available up to the 30 series with full floating hubs, 8-lug wheels. This is the light-duty version of it. But again, just as capable of hauling people as any of the other ones.
And keep in mind, we're in Texas, where the big pickup trucks are the cowboy Cadillacs, and so are these Tahoes and Suburbans, and have been for a long, long time. Why? Well, a lot of farmland here, and you need a dual-purpose vehicle. And the cities in Texas are spread pretty far apart. It might only take you a year to put 40,000 miles on one of these from brand new. So these tend to be well-loved and well-used in Texas.
You know, to Mike Joy's point, one thing about this Texas one is there's no rust. I live in Massachusetts right now where things start to rust as soon as you drive it off the lot. This thing is crisp and clean. I dare say you could buy this here, drive it to New England where there's rust, and double your money or triple it in some cases. These are wonderful vehicles. And again, Texas vehicles pretty much don't rust.
Yeah, our first Suburban in my family was in 1987, and in my mind, that was really the beginning of the craze of the large, full-size SUVs. I mean, up until that point, people who had large Suburbans, well, they were hauling people. They were doing, like Mike was saying, doing ranch work or something, or maybe industrial work. But the concept of having this as a family vehicle, well, it was in the late 80s that really began to take over. And as Mike mentioned, you can get miles on this pretty quickly. This one has 133,000, but that's not bad considering it's a 1988.
One thing about this generation of the Suburban, which launched in '73, was that it finally had 4 doors. You got to remember, the ones that came '72 back to '67 only had 3 doors, 2 on the passenger side, but only 1 on driver. So Chevrolet said, hey, let's put a door and 2 doors on both sides. So it made it more useful, and sales exploded.
And in many ways, this was still kind of a glorified truck. You know, as they went through the next couple generations of Suburbans, it became more and more civilized. And don't get me wrong, it still drives fine. It's a fun car to drive and enjoyable if you want something this big, but it wasn't quite as civilized as the next couple generations.
This one is a nice, I guess you'd call us a Survivor. This is the original paint on this one. It's gently worn.
Well, they thought about it for a moment, but they finally decided to let it go. As the Summit Racing Soul sticker goes on, hang on, come on, we'll stick that on there it is. The Summit Racing Soul sticker goes on, and away that's going to go for $7,250. That's a great thing, once again, as you walk around Barrett-Jackson, every car that's been sold has that sticker on it, and you can see what the car sold for. Well, I mentioned earlier that April Rose had previewed a Corvette. Now it's time for that one to be up on the block. This one's in 1999.
The C5 Corvette was quite an evolution. You know, today we have the C8 with its mid-engine behind the driver. Well, they kind of got there with these. The transmission went from being here onto the dashboard to behind. There's actually a transaxle, and the motor's still up front, but by putting the transmission or the weight of it from here to the back of the car, they actually gave these better handling than even the excellent C4. Under the hood on this one, we'll see the LS1 engine, and there she blows right there. Aluminum block, aluminum heads, which that would have been exotic stuff in 1969. The ZL1 aluminum block on all Corvettes at this point in time.
What we don't see that Steve pointed out is that 6-speed manual transaxle. Now, the first 4 gears are much like you'd find in a regular or older 4-speed Corvette. 5th and 6th gear are both overdrives, and that will give you a very low cruising RPM on Texas freeways, where some of the speed limits are as high as 80 miles per hour.
In the back there, you know, some folks, when these came out, there was a little bit of complaining because with the transaxle in the back, these are rather tall and wide. Some folks, the Buick Grand National people said it's like Aunt Matilda's butt. Well, I dare to differ, but again, by putting the exhaust in the center instead of outboard, that speaks to the architecture of this, wherein there's a transaxle underneath this. But again, like the C4, the opening hatch, very useful for groceries, so a true dual-purpose everyday car.
You know, this really was an all-new car when it came out in 1997. From going from the C4 to the C5, this car has 1,800 fewer parts. And one of the great things about that is when you drive one of these compared to the C4, it doesn't rattle as much. Everything's just a little better put together, I guess you might say. And when you go from a C5 to a C6 to a C7, you just feel very comfortable. You feel very comfortable in the car because the evolution was so smooth. $16,500 for a 1999 Corvette. That C5, all the curves built into it. Beautiful rocket red. Away it goes. We're going to take a quick break here at the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction in Houston. Remember, 500 cars crossing the block over the course of 3 days, every one at no reserve. So many great cars here in the NRG Center in Houston, and 5 of them belong to our own Tyler Hoover. He's got quite a collection of cars, and he's selling 5 of them this weekend. So Tyler and Craig Jackson are going to give us a quick tour.
Tyler, tell us about him.
Okay, well, the first one, a 1988 Porsche 928 S4, and I hadn't seen Risky Business until last year when I was at Houston, so I watched it for the first time. It's a great movie. I wanted to see what the car was all about, and this one being the S4, it's a lot more horsepower, than the one that Tom Cruise drove, you know, a 32 valve, 315 horsepower, 5-speed manual, and I love the color combo on this one. It's a sort of a Cassie red with a burgundy interior, low mileage, really nice car.
Tell us about the next one here.
This is my first time ever owning a Cyclone, 1992, and man, is this thing fun. That launched off the line, it's sort of like an electric car. When you power brake it with the all-wheel drive, the big turbo on the 4.3, it really whips you back.
That's cool.
Next to it is a 1990 Mazda Miata, which is the first model year for a little legendary car. It took British sports cars into reliable Japanese territory, basically, and this one, very, very clean, very original.
Your generation, these are future collector cars like these.
Yeah, we picked this up in Colorado, and I got to take it up into the Rockies, do some off-roading, had a great time with this.
Tell us all about this Superbird.
It's a weird one. So this is actually a R-Code Hemi Superbird, one of 135. Motor-wise, it is different. Still a Hemi, but somebody took the liberty to do.
But it still has the original data VIN tag on it.
Yeah, 528. It's very intense for sure.
That'll be fun, and of course Tyler will be a little nervous as those cross the block, as all consigners are, but it'll be fun to watch. Up on the block right now, a 1997 GMC Sierra. This is a 1500 pickup.
Well, when it comes to pickup trucks, the money is all about short bed, half ton, and we got it right here.
And we got it sold, $9,000 for a 97 GMC Sierra. Very close to a Chevrolet version, but this is the GMC model. Rolling up behind it, going to the Jeep world, this is a 1993 Jeep Wrangler.
Well, you know, Jeep has traditionally done just brilliant things with their brand and their heritage, with one exception. At this point in time, the stylists decided to go with rectangular headlights instead of round ones, and it was a bit of a miscue. They still had the 7-slot grille, but this lasted a couple years, and they got back to the round headlights and a more traditional look. But these are just as capable as any others, although they do suffer a little bit from a bit of a stigma because of those headlights, but they're still awesome.
I would imagine the aftermarket's gotten involved there, Steve, and that, you know, there would be a kit to change that back to a round headlight grille if somebody was really, really looking for that Jeep look. My question on this one would be about the engine. It's a 2.5-liter inline 4-cylinder made into a manual transmission, very much a basic basic spec there, but is that 4-cylinder enough?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've got to remember, of course, that the original Jeeps had that little flathead 4-banger with, 60 horsepower. So again, you know, you're not really going to go, high speeding with this. But I'm with you, Mike. The acceleration is wouldn't be very exciting, but it's still a nice, solid little off-roader.
It's not so much about top speed, or even acceleration. It's the ability to get out of someplace and the gearing attached to the motor. So as long as the gearing is low enough, it'll get you where you need to go.
You still have leaf springs all the way around, and that's good if you're a basic kind of guy. The later versions would have coil springs up front.
Yeah, I think this motor is only good for about 123 horsepower, so it's not an awful lot. $6,000 to that gentleman right there. Thumbs up, and he gets to take that Jeep Wrangler home. Let's check in with Christian Murphy.
Bonjour, Monsieur Richard, ça va? Now, despite what you may think, Richard, I am not a Frenchman, but I am actually a bit of a Francophile. You see, I grew up in Australia in Peugeots like this 205 XL. My father only drove Peugeots. He drove the whole range. My second and third cars were 504s. My fifth car was a 306 Cabriolet, and my mother drives a brand new 306. And so you can imagine that we're a little bit of a Peugeot family. So when I landed in America in 2008, one of the first things I did was look for the Peugeot, but they're nowhere to be found, which I thought was interesting. Peugeot were actually here from 1958 to the early 1980s. And it surprises me, really, that a few more of these great little cars do not cross the auction block. Now this one, it's actually a right-hand drive Peugeot, imported from the UK in 2019. So I am keeping a keen lookout for either the owner or the new buyer and the new owner to see whether or not they, in fact, are Francophiles just like me. Monsieur Richard, retour vers toi.
I'll take your word for all that. Yeah, the Peugeot will be interesting. Don't see many of those crossing the block. And this is a car we'll see very soon. Coming up, this 1968 Volkswagen Beetle Custom, completely restored in 2018 with a brand new engine, lowered. Yeah, we'll see it up here on the block pretty soon. Part of another record-breaking year. The world's greatest collector car auctions consigned today. Add your collector car to the world-class selection at the Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale auction, January 21st through the 29th at Westworld. Visit barrett-jackson.com or call 480-421-6694. Back in here in Houston, up on the block right now, a car we previewed a little while ago, a 1986 Chevy El Camino Custom.
Well, this one was born a 4.3 V6. That was then. Now it has a 350, but more importantly, it's got a lot of great custom touches. The bumper, the air dam, all molded in with ghost flames. Really nicely done custom job.
They've done a really nice job with this. This was the next to final year of the El Camino, which had migrated to the General Motors G-body chassis that it shared with cars like, say, the Buick Regal, the Pontiac Grand Prix. And as such, the aftermarket has an awful lot of suspension enhancements for these. I approve of the heart transplant, the restyling. This is very, very sharp. Nicely done.
And away it goes at $14,500 for that 1986 El Camino Custom. Nicely done. Well, behind it, this is a car that Tyler Hoover previewed just a little while ago, a 1987 Mercedes-Benz 560 SEC.
Well, this pretty much is at the top of the pecking order in Mercedes land as a full-size vehicle. Of course, Mercedes had full-size, mid-size, and compact cars, just like GM and Ford and Chrysler. But again, this is a two-door Executive Express.
Absolutely. And this one appears to be in very, very close to as delivered condition. A lot of options like those headlight washers and wipers. All of these were two-tones, by the way, even silver over silver, but this white over silver was quite popular in the Mercedes line. I think the hammer price on this is going to be largely dependent on the odometer reading, but this one looks to have been well kept.
Yeah, this one is very pure. Often we'll see the wheels on these messed around, and we see 100,324, so 100,324 miles. It's still fairly fresh. These have a timing chain in the engine, not a belt. These go a long time.
You know, the SEC range, and C, of course, standing for coupe, came out, I think, in the early 80s, maybe 81 or so. And, boy, this just became the luxury car that you had to have in those days. It quickly evolved up into this 560 series, gaining more power and getting more performance.
Notice those tail lights, the design of those, they're sort of ribbed. That arrived around 1974, and the idea here was that snow could fall on these things and not obscure them because you have the surface area of these ripples. Very cool design, and it's a Mercedes-Benz styling trait for many, many years.
And as Tyler pointed out a little while ago, it's got ABS, automatic brake system underneath, which back in the 80s, boy, that was brand new. The ability to not have to skid the car when you slammed on the brakes. I'll never forget the first time I slammed on the brakes in an ABS car, and it just got my attention because it came to a stop so smoothly and so effectively. But this was the beginning of that realm when it came to consumer cars. $10,500 for a 1987 Mercedes-Benz 560 SEC. All right, from one German car, check out a car that'll be up on the block pretty soon. It's a 1980 Porsche 928. And this brings back the memory of what has to be one of the greatest auction moments ever at Barrett-Jackson. Well, we've talked a lot about this next car. It's a 1979 Porsche 928, but this one's special. This is the one from the movie Risky Business.
Whoa, we're up to $500,000 in a hurry.
This is not stopping. We are at $650,000 and still moving. 4 separate phone bidders involved in this transaction right now.
$1 million is bid.
Unbelievable.
I've been a part of many special moments at Barrett-Jackson, but this is taking the cake. Wow, I'm gonna have to take a break just so I can take a breath after that rolls off the block.
Well, this was the outlier that we talked about at the top of the show. You just never know what the bidders are going to go for at Barrett-Jackson, and boy, that consignor has to be really pleased with the world record price for a Porsche 928.
Yeah, that was just last year here in Houston. And now up on the block, we get a 1987 Corvette. And once again, this is a fun entry-level car. Looks great, price isn't huge.
Yeah, lightly modified aftermarket wheels, aftermarket exhaust on this, Flowmaster mufflers, the standard 230 horsepower Tuneport 350 still in place, but a great entry-level Corvette.
77,000 miles on the clock, and I don't think that's excessive. A little bit of customization there with the color match wheel centers, those three-piece wheels. So yeah, base engine, TPI injected, made into the 4-speed automatic. That's how most of those rolled off the assembly line.
I tell you what, for less than $10,000, it is a Corvette. I mean, yeah, it's not at the high horsepower version of the Corvette, but it's still a lot of fun, and you still get to do the Corvette wave when you drive by somebody else who's driving along in a Corvette. 1987, and it just sold, interestingly enough, for $8,700, $8,700. Let's check in with April Rose.
I'm feeling really classy right now. I'm in the pre-staging lanes with this 1986 G-Wagon. I've always wanted a G-Wagon. Super cool two-door, made for the Italian market, then imported to the U.S. Now she's got a retrofitted 3-liter turbo diesel inline 6 5-speed manual. You got the snorkel, you got the running boards, Astro Silver paint. Now take a look inside. Black bucket seats look super comfortable. Alpine stereo, 4-spoke leather steering wheel, and there's also a CB radio. Now check this. In the back, wire mesh interior divider. Really interesting. I've never seen that. I'm not sure what it's for, but if Tyler gets out of line, Rick, we're going to throw him back there.
He can crab walk in the back, and we'll all be safe while he's doing that. The CB radio is the thing that really interests me. I'm curious how that ended up in there. A little while ago, before we went to a commercial break, we previewed this 1968 Volkswagen Beetle Custom.
Well, this has been done over with something was originally called the Cal Look. Southern California Volkswagen owners would slam them low like this, put Porsche wheels, and of course now it's become sort of a standardized look, but you saw it first in Southern California. Upgraded with Fuchs Porsche-style wheels and disc brakes up front, something you could not get in 1968.
It's very sharp. I like the two-tone here. Steve, correct me, but I don't believe that's something Volkswagen ever did from the factory, but it certainly complements the lines of this well. The white, especially against the turquoise, creates a nice contrast.
Yeah, Mike, it sure does look good. There's a thing called the Hebmuller, which was sort of a custom version of the Volkswagen, which did have a two-tone paint scheme similar to this, but that's a Hebmuller's theme on a more conventional Beetle, but it does look good. Great eyeball.
In terms of the standard Volkswagen, it wasn't offered. And by the way, that bumper is unique in terms of the fact that if this had come original from the factory, we'd have a squared-off bumper starting in 1968. This is a bumper that really would have appeared on something in 67 earlier.
68 was the second year for the small bolt pattern wheels, replacing the much larger and very different wheels. And of course, it opened the door to these Porsche style wheels. The bolt pattern is very similar to it's identical to the Porsche, but previous to that, this would not have been able to be converted without doing some difficult conversion work to the brake drums and discs up front, but they bolt right on.
$13,000 for a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle Custom. It was rebuilt in 2018, had the engine replaced, all kinds of great work to it. It just sold here at Barrett-Jackson. It's a French invasion of the block up there right now. The car that Christian Murphy previewed, a 1993 Peugeot 205 XL.
You know, thanks to the EPA and the government relaxing importation rules, 25 years and older, this car is now legal to import. I like it. It's cute. And now, of course, I'm a guy who currently owns a smart car, and in high school, I actually drove a lit car. So I'm hip to these small, little, tiny cars. A nice example.
The competitive set here would have included the base VW Golf. These were capable little cars. And yes, Peugeot was in America in the 60s into the 70s, but they never built out their dealer network, so they never sold a lot of cars, so there weren't a lot of parts available, so bye-bye.
Yeah, by 1993, they'd left the United States. Interestingly enough, 1993 was also the year they won Le Mans yet again, back when they were driving the 905s. Up on the block now, this is a car we previewed a little while ago, a 1980 Porsche 928 up on the block.
We can't overestimate how controversial this was when it debuted in the mid-70s. It was Porsche's first front-drive V8 supercar. And a lot of Porsche fanatics said, no way, we want air-cooled rear engine. Well, eventually these did trickle into popularity, and of course now they're legitimate collector vehicles. But again, for a while these were very controversial. But the crazy thing about these is similar to the rear engine package, the transaxles in the back. So Porsche, they didn't build a nose heavy slug. These are actually quite capable touring cars, almost 50-50 weight distribution.
And for a while, Steve, it was thought that the 928 would completely replace the 911, which would be discontinued. It ended up being an American-born president of Porsche, Peter Schultz, that says, no, the 911 is the DNA of Porsche. We must find a way to continue that line. And instead, it was the V8 front-engine Porsche that went away, at least for a decade or so.
To that point, here at the auction, we do have a Chevy Corvair coming a little later on this week, and the Chevy Corvair debacle with Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed book and the rear-engine tail-happy nature of certain rear-engine cars had Porsche running scared. They frankly were concerned that rear-engine cars might be outlawed because of the brouhaha that started with Ralph Nader's 1967 book. But again, it never came to pass. But again, this was Porsche's insurance policy right here.
Not a huge horsepower car in its day, only 220, but you got to remember, you know, it was 1980. There wasn't a lot of horsepower to be had. Later they had the S version, and of course horsepower began to tick up slowly but surely. Once again, this was a halo car in its day. I mean, this was pretty cool, except for the people who loved the original 911, and they were not happy about it.
Remember, this one's a 5-speed manual, not automatic, so that gives it bonus points.
Tell you what, pretty fun car for $15,000 for a 1980 Porsche 928. That gentleman right there is going to have a fun driving that around. Only got 43,000 miles on the odometer. Not bad. Well, not behind it, we got something pretty interesting. This is a 1960 Austin Mini 7. Now, it's important to point out that this debuted in 1959 as an Austin 7. It was produced by the British Motor Corporation, which is called BMC today. And it was originally marketed as the Austin 7 and the Morris Mini Minor. We didn't call it the Mini back then. Technically, this was an Austin 7.
You know, this was the world had seen front-engine, front-wheel drive cars before, but this was the first time the engines were arranged longitudinally, transverse, which made packaging tidy, complete. And I believe it was Alex Ignatius, I believe was the engineer behind this, or Alec, I should say. And really, this was the blueprint right here, Transverse 4, that was behind almost every successful compact front-wheel drive car built thereafter.
It was ideal packaging, Steve, and of course these are very short. They're under 11 feet long, so they're easy to park, but they have a commodious trunk and lots of rear seat room. I had a later Mini Cooper S. The fellow I bought it from was 6'4". The fellow I sold it to was 6'5". What I love is the speedometer and the gauge in this car, and yes, there's only one gauge, and it's right in the center of the dash. That means you could build this car with the same dashboard, whether you were building it with right-hand drive as this one or left-hand drive for the United States. The gauge stayed in the same place.
This does have a place in movie history, The Italian Job, of course, a movie that featured these coming out of an airplane, I believe, and flying around, but quite a movie to see. But again, the Cooper S, as you had, Mike, was a hot rod version of this, almost the Super Sport, the RT, and that would have had a hotter engine, wider wheels and tires, but again, a groundbreaking car. Look at how nearly flat that floor is right there. That's the beauty of front engine, front drive architecture.
Yeah, the entire concept of designing this car was to make it as big as possible inside and as small as possible possible on the outside. And as Mike mentioned, you can be tall, you can be fairly large and still fit into this. And I think a lot of people are shocked when they get into this car as to how much room. And because of the way it's designed, it's got such a low center of gravity. Well, it's a great little performance car as well, considering it doesn't have a lot of horsepower. $14,500 for a 1960 Austin Mini 7. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Well, I'm here with an emerging classic, the GMT 400 Chevy pickup trucks, and this one's really special. You know, only 60,000 miles. The consignor tells me it's a one-owner truck, but this came out before the idea of a luxury truck, you know, really wasn't embraced by automakers. So you had to go with a conversion company, and when you look inside of this one, it is far from stock. So this would be ordered new by dealers, and you get the interior, the Regency package, which was like a private aircraft inside. You see the pillow top seats and the golden oak. This thing only 60,000 miles on it. And if you look over at the original window sticker, you have the Chevy sticker right here, $23,000, and then the Regency package add-on up here, $7,300. So 31 grand for this truck, even adjusted for inflation. That's pretty good. And there's actually a cool story with this truck. In 2006, when it was a normal used truck, they used this to tow a 69 Camaro to the Scottsdale auction to sell it. And now, well, it's a collector car selling in Houston.
The full evolution. Thanks a lot, Tyler. Up on the block now, a 2006 Toyota Sequoia Limited SUV.
Well, we saw that Mercedes SUV, which of course was influenced severely by the American market, and this is Toyota's response really to the popularity of the SUV. V8 power in a Toyota, yeah, these all have that. Of course, these have coil springs all the way around, so they're a very comfortable riding vehicle. Very heavy, but again, luxury and off-road capability all rolled up in one.
Said to be a 7-seat SUV. Pretty large and in charge there. Aftermarket American racing wheels, big Cooper tires. Clean Carfax, and that's important to have that vehicle history report accompany the car to show you that it's not been in any accidents or had any untoward history. I would imagine all that's holding this one back would be the odometer.
$5,500 for a 2006 Toyota Sequoia Limited version of the SUV. Don't forget, just go to Barrett-Jackson.com. That's where you can find the full list of cars that are going to be crossing the block over the course of the next 3 days. They call it the docket, and that is the list you want to check out and see, well, what do you want to look forward to as we go through our broadcast over this 3-day period. Remember, about 500 cars in total. Up on the block now, a 1986 Chevy K10 Custom.
Well, this one is sky high. The K, of course, tells us it's a four-wheel drive, but the lift kit on this one has got to be nearly a foot. 350 power, but again, the classic Chevy square body. Next to last year, 1988, would see the more streamlined replacement. And if you want a straight axle in your Chevy four-wheel driver, this was one of the last years to get it.
One thing I do like here is they have replaced the original carburation with a Sniper EFI kit, electronic fuel injection. You know, a carburetor was a great thing at the turn of the century, and I'm talking 1900, because carburetors are older than automobiles. But you tune a carburetor and it operates perfectly as long as the day you're driving it is that temperature and that barometric pressure. It cannot self-adjust or self-adapt as modern EFI systems can. And with EFI, we get more power and better fuel economy and better emissions. Win, win, win all the way around.
You know, Steve mentioned this was the second of the last year of this run. You got to remember that this run of truck, the CK, started in 1973. So, I mean, they were at the 14th year when they finally went out. And it needed to go into that next generation to become a little more sophisticated. But it was a pretty solid run for this generation of truck.
And the next gen would be the GMT 400, and something about those kind of controversial. Again, that straight axle, these things went away in favor of torsion bars, and a little less robust, but far more comfortable riding characteristics. But again, we see here, there's the 10-bolt rear axle, very similar axle to used in a Buick Grand National, no joke, 8.5-inch ring gear inside of that, the guts anyway. The shock absorbers are staggered, so we combat axle hop and acceleration. But again, this one is a huge lift kit, looks tough.
Yeah, there's that lift kit, and there's all that look underneath the chassis. You know, in many ways, this generation of truck was really the evolution where it got less trucky and more comfortable. So they began to realize people were using these as offices and they needed to do a little bit better. $17,000 for a 1986 Chevy K10 custom pickup truck. Well, as they sign the paperwork, we're going to take a quick break, but boy, there are plenty of cars left to go here today. You can see them lined up in the McGuire staging lanes, plenty of people checking them out. We're going to take a quick break here in Houston, but we promise we'll be back.
The all-new line of Barrett-Jackson merchandise and apparel is now available. From road rallies to the office, there are many stylish options for the car lover. Available year-round or online at shopbarrettjackson.com.
Back in Houston, you know, it's been almost 4 months since we had our last Barrett-Jackson collector car auction, but we haven't been sitting around. A lot of us have been going to great car events. In fact, Craig Jackson had a chance to spend some time at Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach, one of those iconic weekends, and a lot of things have spawned off of it. It is now called Car Week. It has grown immensely, and it is one of the most important concours on the planet. Cars come from all around. To win Pebble Beach is the crown jewel for any collector. Just getting your car accepted to come on the lawn here, the experience of taking your car on the rally and actually taking your cars out and driving it. I showed here back in 2019. We are restoring a car that will come back here, and that is part of what I love about coming here to Pebble Beach. You know, it is a great weekend. You've got the Monterey historic races going on. You've got other concours. You've got the Quail. You've got so many events that have spawned. This is the nucleus right here at Pebble Beach. It doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah, the great thing about being at Pebble Beach is it's not just the cars on the lawn. Driving around Monterey, Carmel, all of the great cars you see everywhere in town. It's pretty spectacular to be there for that event. Up on the block now, a 2005 BMW 645 Ci.
Well, this would be a great way to go on 17-mile drive on Pebble Beach. This was the Bengal era of BMW design. You see that rear end with the Bengal butt, but a V8 engine, a back seat, pretty car.
$18,500 for that one right there. Not too shabby. 4.4-liter engine. Away it goes to those folks right there. And right behind it, we're going to go to something modern as well, a 2005 Porsche Cayenne Turbo.
Now, when Porsche announced 20 years ago that they were going to come out with an SUV, everybody groaned, oh, why? It ruins Porsche. But when they did it, oh my God, did they do it. 450 horsepower, twin-turbo V8. And a lot of SUVs, they're not built to go off-road. This one is. Low-range transfer case, adjustable air suspension. This thing is a rocket ship on and off the road.
You know, the SUVs saved the company. The midsize Macan and the full-size Cayenne are the two biggest selling Porsche models. Now, the Cayenne hierarchy has the turbo right at the top. There's the base Cayenne with a V6, the Cayenne S, the Cayenne GTS, and the turbo. 450 horsepower. This was all you could get.
You know, one thing I got to say is, you know, the Mustang Mach-E is an SUV. I've heard a lot of people say, man, they ruined the Mustang. I say, as long as they're still building the core vehicle, these are just icing on the cake, and it's all good.
And I remember Porsche had a great commercial for this. All you heard was the engine revving, and you saw the car in a driveway, and the guy got out of the car and went back, and his phone was sitting at the back, and he picked it up and goes, doesn't that sound awesome? And the point being, he'd called somebody just to tell him that, yeah, my Porsche Cayenne SUV sounds like a Porsche.
Well, Porsche SUVs, the Mustang Mach-E, and get ready, folks, because General Motors President Mark Reuss said in a press conference, I believe about a month ago, that the Corvette is going to spawn different iterations. Could be an SUV, could be a sedan, but there's going to be more than just the two-seat mid-engine car from Chevrolet wearing the vaunted Corvette name in the near future.
Well, it's strong, it's intelligent branding. I see no problem with that.
$16,000, 2005 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Well, if you'd like to try and sharpen your bidding skills, maybe grab a Greek prize in the process, you'll want to play Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. All right, all you have to do is go to BarrettJacksonFantasyBid.com to register and play. You will try to predict the winning bid of some select auction vehicles that will cross the block this Saturday. The winner of Houston will receive a 3-day Radford driving school experience. You'll also have a chance to win the grand prize, a 2022 Dodge Challenger. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 years old to play. All you have to do is visit BarrettJacksonFantasyBid.com for official rules. There's only a couple of days before the game begins, so make sure you register. There's the staging lanes up on the block now. We're going to stay in the modern realm. A 1997 Mercedes-Benz S500. Although, can I call this modern? It's 25 years old.
Well, it is a modern car, I would say, but of course the last car I previewed with the 560 SEC, this is the next generation of it where they call it the S500 Coupe. It's still a pillarless coupe, but with these, it's called the 140 chassis, and Mercedes spent $1 billion developing the chassis. It took them a long time to make that money back, but they did a lot of new features and tech. The coolest part to me is the double pane glass. A lot of people think it's bulletproof. It's not, it's just double pane for extra insulation.
Look how thick that is. I mean, it's almost 1/8 of an inch, but that's how you get a very quiet interior on a sedan or a hardtop with no B-pillar. This does have aftermarket wheels. No harm done. You can certainly get the stock type wheels and return this back to factory condition for not a lot of money.
These cars also had the soft close doors, an early vacuum controlled pod where you could just lightly close the door and not have to worry about it. It'd suck it shut. Same with the trunk. I mean, there's so much technology. Mercedes always tries to be 10 years ahead of everybody else, and it trickles down eventually to other cars, but yeah, gorgeous.
And what a top-of-the-line car this was in its day. I mean, this was a pretty expensive car, and now we're seeing it at $6,000. I know a lot of current buyers are concerned about the maintenance cost on this, but still, for a great highway cruiser, you can't go wrong at this point for $6,000.
In 1995, they actually had a revision of the rear view mirror. It was power controlled, but people kept breaking the motor, so they actually went back to a manual one because nobody knew the switch was down there.
Well, congratulations to those folks right there. Let's check in with April Rose.
So many beautiful cars here in the pre-staging lanes, just like this 1976 F100. If you could sum up the 70s in one color, this would be it. Now in 76, they boxed in the headlights here, but still made them round, and it started the evolution of that Ford egg crate grille look. Very cool. Now you could get her in the 302, 360, or 390. This one's the factory 360 with that select shift 3-speed automatic. She's also got the Ranger XLT package, which adds a ton of chrome and bumpers, wood grain interior, full carpet inside. And Rick, I saw this thing inside. I think it's called a cassette player. Do you have any tapes? I think that's what they're called. Tapes, right?
You know, I don't remember those, but I do remember 8-tracks. Yeah, it's funny to think about the evolution of playing music in cars. It actually had record players at one point, then evolved into 8-track, cassettes, CDs, and now, yeah, we just stream everything. 1986 Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon that April previewed is up on the block.
So nowadays, the G-Wagon is a status symbol for celebrities or well-to-do soccer moms. We didn't get them officially in the U.S. until 2002. But this one being in 1986, it was actually born to go in Italy and then imported in the U.S. But you can kind of see them in their original form. They were meant to be rugged off-roaders, utility vehicles. This one, a diesel, turbo diesel with a 5-speed.
Yeah, when this was new, you would have to go through the gray market importation process where a company would bring this car over from Europe and then federalize it and make it correspond to whatever the current EPA and crash test regulations were. Then you could get a sticker certifying it as a gray market import. Gray market cars were always difficult to sell back in the day compared to those that had been factory prepared to sell in the United States and making all regulations. But this is a body on frame SUV, and as Tyler points out, it's a bruiser.
And it just sold for $21,000, and right now that makes it the #3 seller of the day on this first day here at Barrett-Jackson in Houston. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to see a 1951 Chevy. This is a Styleline Deluxe Bel Air. I love the color. Thistle gray and trophy blue. It's got a 6-cylinder engine under the hood. We'll see it here very soon. Barrett-Jackson back in the Lone Star State. We had our first appearance last year here in Houston, and now we're back again for our second tour of the state. About 500 cars that'll be rolling up on the auction block over the course of our 3 days. Up there right now, we just saw that Pontiac Fiero sell. That just sold a moment ago. And with, not surprisingly, we see a fair number of pickup trucks. And this is one of them, a 1998 Chevy C1500 Custom that Tyler previewed.
Well, yes, indeed. The custom part of this comes down to the Regency conversion kit, which is the lower effects, the wheel arches, the kick plates, and the graphics, and the wheels. But otherwise, it's largely unmolested, come right down to the 5.7-liter pushrod LT1 V8.
Yeah, that's what happened when the conversion van industry turned their attention to pickup trucks. Why? Because people wanted to buy them, upgraded over stock. I spoke earlier about Texas and their penchant for cowboy Cadillacs. This is it right here. A pickup truck that has been redone to this fashion and all of these luxury touches. 60,000 actual miles, not bad at all.
This one is an extended cab with a small back seat, so technically room for 4, whereas the true 4-door cabs are also a possibility. This is sort of a mid-spot between those two.
You know, you think back to the early pickup trucks, especially, those Model T pickups, and you think about how far you've come from just the utilitarian, most basic thing that it didn't have a lot of horsepower, didn't have a lot of style, and it wasn't comfortable at all to drive, to this era when people were beginning to go, you know what, I want my truck to be cool, to what we have today, which are rolling offices and very comfortable.
Notice here the Snug Top logo on the fiberglass tonneau. Snug Top was to tonneaus what Cragar is to wheels, Hooker is to headers. One of the big names, and again, you almost couldn't see a mid-90s pickup without a Snug Top tonneau cover.
$18,500 for a 1998 Chevy C1500 pickup custom. All right, remember the small Blazer? We've got a big pickups, big SUVs that we see across the block, but in 1990 they were building the Chevy S10 Blazer, and this is a custom version.
Well, that's right. This would have had either a 4-cylinder or a 4.3 V6, and we always look here to see which engine. Well, what's this? 5.3 liter what? Yeah, there's an LS swap into this thing. So there's 327 cubic inches of modern LS-type engine under this Cowell induction hood. But again, these mini Blazers arrived on the scene, I believe, in 1983, and were Chevrolet's first mid-sized or right-sized compact Blazers below the actual full-size Blazer K5. But cool little vehicle. I like the wheels, and that V8 engine's going to light this thing on fire.
Yeah, the original engines on these were the 2.5-liter Iron Duke 4-cylinder, or the aforementioned 4.3 V6, which was 3/4 of a small block V8, replacing the 2.8-liter V6. I had one with a 2.8 and a 5-speed. It was pretty gutless. The 4.3 was a whole nother cat, and I can imagine with an LS what this would do. Nice, mild custom with a lot of performance under hood.
Looks like the original drivetrain, including the 7.5-inch ring gear axle, is still here, and it is a fact that that LS 5.3 will bolt right up to the 4.3 bell housing. So again, you might not want to really pound on it too much because that stuff might not have been rated for 350 foot-pounds, but again, going down the road, you won't know the difference.
See, we've got an internet bidder involved. The gentleman on the right is keeping track of the internet bids and bidding against folks in the room, but it's the internet bidder who takes it away for $17,000 for a 1990 Chevy S10 Blazer Custom. Pickup trucks rule, 1998 GMC Sierra Custom.
Yeah, this is a GMT 400 platform, 10 years on, 1988 through 98. This is the extended cab, this one here, a little longer, and this does have a larger back seat. Technically, again, a 6-footer might be a little cramped back there, but again, this has been customized. The body-colored front bumper and the lowered stance and the US wheels are not factory, but they sure look good.
Yeah, Chevy was a little late to the crew cab pickup body style and embraced the idea of a full 4-door pickup, although they were making S10 4-door pickups for sale in Mexico and South America long before they came to the United States. So we got this, kind of, you can call it a super cab or a cab and a half or an extended cab, but that back seat was good for short trips pretty much. You notice no door handle there on the rear side doors because the handle was in the door jamb and those doors were hinged at the rear. But if you couldn't get a crew cab, next best thing.
Of course, the snug top fiberglass tonneau right there keeps your items secure from theft with little locks on it. Of course, dry. These are designed to come over the side so rain would come down and not into the bed. Very convenient and good looking.
And, you know, the extended cabin concept really goes back to Volkswagen again. You know, they had a pickup truck, they called it the Duple cabin. It was basically an extended cabin that they were building in the 50s. Got a bidder on the floor, got a bidder over the internet. They're trying to get this thing. $12,500 the current bid. Way it goes, $12,500 for a 1990 GMC Sierra Custom pickup truck. And as they write the price on the sold sticker, we're going to check out the cars still to come here in the McGuire staging lanes at the NRG Center here in Houston. Part of another record-breaking year, the world's greatest collector car auctions consign today. Add your collector car to the world-class selection at the Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale auction, January 21st through the 29th at Westworld. Visit barrett-jackson.com or call 480-421-6694. All kinds of interesting stuff here in the NRG Center. Check that out. That's actually an Oldsmobile. Yeah, very vintage. Love the looks of that. That'll be up on the block during the course of this auction, but there's so many great things we'll see. All of them selling at no reserve. Up on the block right now, it's a 1993 Corvette. This one's a 40th anniversary coupe.
Well, the ruby red paint on this, again, was seen only on 40th anniversary cars, but something kind of cool to the ZR1 wheels, front and rear, and unlike the standard wheel and tire package, these are wide in the front and a little bit wider in the back. Very subtle, but again, it's a 6-speed manual with the 5.7.
I like that the owner of this car has kept all of the documentation that came with the car and the little extras. Key fobs, a zippered case with a book and manuals, all the mechanical records. There was a factory demonstration CD played by the Beach Boys and a VHS vehicle information tape. Don't know where you're going to find to play that now. And the original window sticker. All of those are included with the sale. So clearly, at least the first owner and subsequent owners of this car knew that it was going to be a future collectible and acted accordingly.
Yeah, I love how this has the darker top that you were pointing out just a little bit earlier, Steve, whether you got a body color, or in this case, the darker top. And like you say, I love the fact that it's got all those great things, the VHS cassette, the CD, things, and, you know, kids now are going, wait a minute, I'm sorry, what's a VHS? $16,500 for a 1993 Corvette 40th Anniversary Edition. Right, at every auction, we try to spotlight one particular year, and here in Houston, we've decided to spotlight 1965. Why? Well, that's because that was the year that the old baseball team, the Colt 45s, evolved into what we now call the Houston Astros. That's right, the same team that's playing the Yankees tonight in the American League Championship Series. That's where they played. So we sent Christian Murphy out to find a car he thought was interesting from 1965.
I love cars that are a little bit different and even a little bit quirky, which is why lot 122, a 1965 Chevy Corvair Monza, really caught my eye. Think of cars in the 60s, Bel Airs, Lincolns, Cadillacs, big fins, massive long things, overstated design, chrome everywhere. Well, the Corvair Monza, it went the other way. It was in many respects the first US compact car, an answer in part to the success of the VW Beetle, the Fiats and Renaults that were coming into the market at that time. And it was truly groundbreaking. Understated design, no fins, subtle chrome touches on the exterior, but perhaps the biggest nod to the VW Beetle was the rear-mounted, air-cooled engine. This one, a twin carburetor, flat 6 Corvair, mated to a 2-speed Chevy Power Glide Auto. Now, the Corvair was only produced from 1960 to 1969 in 2 generations. It came in a 4-door, a 2-door, a convertible, a 4-door wagon, a passenger van, and a pickup. And in 1965, well, they scaled the model range back to the 2-door coupe, the convertible, and this, the 4-door hardtop. The Corvair is a truly unique vehicle, even down to its name. Legend has it that its name comes from the marriage of Corvette and Bel Air.
Tell you what, big money just crossed the block here at Barrett-Jackson on the very first day. $60,000 for a 1981 Jeep CJ7. It's a Laredo custom, all kinds of great touches to it, although it still has a straight 6 engine. $60,000, that gentleman right there, willing to pay for that straight 6. Very cool. Up on the block right now, this is a car we previewed just a little while ago, a 1951 Chevy Style Line. It's a deluxe Bel Air.
Well, the special thing about this car, aside from the fact that it's bone stock and beautifully restored, is that roof. Notice that it's a hardtop, no longer with a fixed B-pillar or a full door frame. This was pretty advanced stuff in 1951. Roll the windows down and you have wide open, unobstructed view left to right.
Yeah, this was first appearance of the 2-door hardtop in General Motors' lowest price line of cars, the Chevrolet. Buick, Olds, Pontiac, Cadillac had it, and you know, the Chevy dealers, they demanded it. Note too that this is a Style Line Deluxe. That's the model. Bel Air was a trim package and would soon become the leading model of Chevrolet. So it too making its very early appearance here. Nicely restored car.
And speaking of things that were soon to come, 1955 would be the debut of the small block Chevy V8. But before that, you're looking at strictly the Blue Flame overhead valve 6-banger, in this case a 216 cube with 3-speed manual, no power glide here.
You know, we see the shoebox Chevys, you know, that 55, 56, 57, that, you know, we see so many of those. They're so popular. We don't see as many from the early 50s. That's why I like this. I like the fact that it's bringing reasonably strong money for a 1951 Style Line Deluxe. Beautifully done. As we mentioned, the color thistle gray, trophy blue. And that's the final price for it, $25,000. As the hammer comes down, and those folks right there will take it away. We are in Texas, plenty of horsepower of all types, and we're going to take a quick break, but we promise to come back to the NRG Center in just a moment. Beautiful here in Houston. A little chilly earlier in the week, but now the temperatures have come back up. It's a great day to be here, especially if you want to go to the Houston Astros game tonight where they play the Yankees. But meanwhile, inside the NRG Center, the Barrett-Jackson collector car auction is cranked up. And there you've got a 1973 dune buggy with, yes, Astros stickers on it and Astros colors, blue and orange. And it just hammered sold at $15,000. Yep, got the Houston Astros touch right there. Pulling up behind it, we're going to go back to pickup trucks. There's a lot of them here in Texas for good reasons. The 1976 Ford F-100.
Well, this is a special little truck. It's a half-ton short bed with a 360 big block under the hood. Of course, the 360 is the 352 with a 60 thousandths overboard. Yeah, big block, half-ton, two-wheel driver. This is a beautiful, unrestored truck as far as I can tell. The wheel covers on this, they look kind of like mag wheels. That's factory stuff. I like it.
So this is an F-100 Ranger XLT, Ranger and upmarket trim on the FE, both inside and out. A lot of gleaming stainless there. And of course the badging to match. Ranger would go on to later become Ford's compact and then midsize pickup, but you know, here it is in the full size. Ford had a lot of two-tones that they offered on this body style, and I think that's kind of a neat thing, a neat departure from just the usual, you know, one color all over big pickup.
This does have twin I-beam front suspension. We might have just seen a glimpse of that. And it was Ford's innovation from 1965, which gave something of a passenger car ride by splitting the beam axle in half and mounting it with coil springs. The rear axle, of course, is the traditional Ford 9-inch solid axle with traditional leaf springs at the rear.
Now, this generation of the Ford F-100 actually started back in 1973, went all the way to 79. So it's the middle of the run. This is a car that April previewed a little while ago, and I love the fact that consignor points out this is the factory engine that's in there.
In 1980, Ford totally resigned the F-Series pickup, and they actually lightened the frame, and it was a move toward better fuel economy as CAFE kicked in. So if you want a heavy, all-steel Ford pickup, this is your last shot, this generation.
$20,000 for a 1976 Ford F-100. Congratulations to that gentleman right there. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Well, I found another cool custom Chevy pickup truck with an even cooler story. This one, Lot 58, is a 1988 Chevy pickup truck, and you see it has a custom pinstripe paint job on it, the flares with the steps, and inside a pretty wild interior from the 80s, the golden oak cup holders and all that. But the big claim to fame with this truck is in the back. He's actually sitting back here. That's Dale Robertson, Hollywood actor and television Western era silver screen legend, and this was actually sold to the next owner in 2002. And if you look at the documentation here, you can see when he sold the car in 2002. Now, I have to admit, I've heard of Tales of the Wells Fargo Wagon, the TV show, but I'm showing my youth and inexperience here because I didn't know who Dale Robertson was, but good-looking dude.
Yeah, one of those classic names from the Westerns, Dale Robertson. What a great name. All right, we'll see that up here before too long. Meanwhile, we've got a 2003 Mercedes-Benz SL500.
Well, these are not to be confused with an actual AMG. This is the AMG styling group, which includes the wheels and perhaps some engine upgrades. But again, this is pretty much the cream of the crop in the 5 Series Mercedes.
First year for this body style, 2003. The AMG package got you the badging, AMG wheels not seen here, rocker panel extensions, and a special, more aggressive looking front and rear bumper cover as seen on this one.
The tri-pointed star in the center is not hollow. This one has the night radar, I believe. This is sort of a vision that would detect things in the dark that help you to see that. So when that's covered like that, that indicates the presence of the night vision.
That option's called Distronic, a very early iteration of it, but that's where they mounted it, right behind the three-pointed star.
$16,700 for that 2003 Mercedes-Benz SL500. Staying in that modern European range, right behind it we got a 2006 BMW M6.
M, whenever you say M and BMW, you're talking AMG and Mercedes land, but the real deal. These are not equipment packages. These are actually real hot rods. V10 power onto the hood of this M6. Just a future collectible right now.
And and this would have been a $100,000 plus car new back in 2006. Receipts for all the services performed, and so very, very well kept M car.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap for our first 2 hours of live coverage here on FYI, but there's still plenty more auction action headed your way this week right here in Houston. Houston up on the block right now. Check this out. We got a 2006 BMW M6.
Yeah, 500 horsepower, V10 under the hood. Now, often we'll see Mercedes AMG editions. More often than not, it's basically an appearance package. But when you talk M on any BMW, you're talking serious engineering from front to back. Bigger brakes, bigger wheels, stiffer suspension, lower stance, aerodynamics. And again, on this one here, 500 horsepower, naturally aspirated V10.
And of course, BMW's motorsports division. Now it seems that every car manufacturer has one and has letter cars such as this. Okay, yes, Chrysler did letter cars back in the 50s and 60s, but among your current European high performance cars, well, BMW did it first and probably best.
And the styling in this, you know, Chris Bangle, the flame surfacing is what they call this. And it was a styling direction that responded to the way light reflected off the body. And I'm kind of wishy-washy on it. I prefer the previous iteration, but then again, I prefer the Model T to the Mustang.
Well, I tell you, the 6 Series, and I personally like this version. I mean, you know what? We call it the Bangle butt. That's the way it's designed and styled in the back. But you see Lexus, other designers kind of picked up on the same concept. And for its day, I think this really was a beautiful car, a great-looking coupe that you could drive around in. And once again, having the M version, 500 horsepower, this was the way to go. You'll notice we got 3 bidders involved right now. We got somebody on the floor. We got an internet bidder. I think the internet bidder is the current high bidder. And away it goes. Looks like the bidder on the floor came out the winner. Congratulations to that gentleman right there. He's going to enjoy all 500 horsepower for that thing. And Craig Jackson comes up to give him a congratulations. Never know who's going to come up and chat with you after you buy a car. Up on the block right now, a 2006 Maserati Quattroporte.
Well, this again was the many efforts on Maserati's part to build a 4-door performance car, Quattroporte 4 doors. But something I like on this one here is the original correct spec tires, the Michelin Pirelli P0 tires, not a generic, parts store tire. It's nice to see that the original specification tire still in place.
So the engines in these were developed by Ferrari, and the basic engine architecture shared between those two makes. It's a 4.2-liter V8, creates 400 horsepower, and this sedan does have paddle shifters. It's an F1 style automatic. Sebring Blue.
I always got a kick out of the Ventaports on Buicks. Well, we see them on the Quattroporte as well. Of course, the Ventaports would arrive in Buick land about 1950 or so. 4 on the big Buicks, 3 on the smaller ones. But again, the Quattroporte got 3 on each side. I don't think that Maserati or Pininfarina was aping Buick, or were they?
The Quattroporte name originally goes back to the original Quattroporte, which was built back in the 1960s, I think 1963 or so, when they first came out with them. And then there's been an evolution, and of course Quattroporte simply refers to 4 doors, which is what you have here.
I do like the way that the bumpers are blended into the body. They hide in plain sight behind these body-colored fascia and rear shock. There's no ugly, bulky bumper. It kind of hides right in there. Nice work.
Not bad. You got a Ferrari F1 style automatic transmission. You got 400 horsepower. And currently only bid is $16,000.
And that hidden bumper really is effective up front. It almost looks like it's sort of just a bare nose, but that's it's totally crash worthy. It's approved by the DOT, but again, a beautiful design effort right there.
And away it goes, $15,000 for a 2006 Maserati Quattroporte, 4.2-liter V8 engine, 400 horsepower. An amazing independent suspension, 14-way adjustable seats, and off it goes. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Well, I found a Rosso Corsa Ferrari here, lot 75, a 1985 Ferrari Mondial Quattro Valvole, which you can see, this is a 4-seat Ferrari. It is the last 4-seat car with a mid-engine V8 in the back ever built. It looks a little awkward, I guess a lot of people say that, but it does have a lot of practicality with the back seat. And you got more power with that 4-valve engine in the back, 240 horsepower. You also have a trunk back here, but if you look inside the engine, you can see something funny and very Italian. The Bosch mechanical fuel injection right here, sending the fuel into all 8 cylinders of the engine. But for some reason, when they got the injector right here, they did 2 little loop-de-loops, and I have no idea why other than because of Italian.
The Mondial, not the most loved Ferrari of all time, but it's still a Ferrari. It's still a pretty cool car. You get that prancing horse on the front. It'll be up on the block before too long. Right now, up on the block, we got a 1977 Corvette L82.
Well, by 1977, Chevrolet and Corvette were well into the smog era. Still had dual exhaust, or did they? There was actually a single catalytic converter underneath the passenger side feet, and so this was basically an emissions car. But with that said, on the hood we see L82, which was the big dog 350. Those emblems right there tell you this is the more potent engine, about 220 horse, I believe, aluminum intake manifold. This one's backed by a 4-speed, so if you want a fast Corvette in 77, this is as good as it got.
The luggage rack on this one, I don't know, looks a little out of place to me on Corvettes. It's a seldom seen option, but it is a very practical one because these cars did not have opening trunks during this era.
It does have the optional aluminum wheels. They kind of hide in plain sight, but the steel rallies would have been standard.
Well, I'll tell you what, didn't have a lot of horsepower, but they sold a lot of them. I think they sold like almost 50,000 of those back in 1977, and that one just sold here at Barrett-Jackson for $17,000. Don't forget, all you have to do is go to barrett-jackson.com. If you've already seen a car cross the block, but you can't remember what it sold for, that's where you can find the full list of cars and what they sold for. You have to log in to find that out, but it's quick and easy to do. Great way to do research on what's going on in the collector car world. On the block now is that 1988 Chevy C1500 pickup that used to belong to actor Dale Robertson that Tyler previewed.
Yeah, beyond the Dale Robinson provenance, this is also the first year, 1988, for the GMT 400 total restyle of the Chevy pickup truck. And similar bones underneath, but again, aerodynamic styling here for improved fuel efficiency. And of course, you know, everything improves when you do that. But this has been customized. I think maybe Choo Choo Customs, not sure, but again, the wheel flares, the running boards, and the extension on the back of the cab, not factory, but kind of a cool custom look.
Well, I like the presentation here because it makes this a story car, something that you can, you know, take down to the local ice cream store or down to your local Cars and Coffee and tell stories about who owned it, and a lot of provenance. I saw a you know, Hollywood-type photo autographed of Dale Robertson, a letter which I believe was probably from him, either to the next owner or to someone talking about his enjoyment of this pickup truck. So all those things together create a great story. Now, does it create a higher sell price? Well, that's up to the bidders.
And here's another one of those extended cabs with the opening rear doors for access to the back seats. And again, yeah, this here it's not a roll bar. It's not even a style bar. It's basically just an aesthetic extension of the cab roof. It kind of gives it a swoopier look. Now, up on the front of this, we can tell that Dale Robertson probably lived in deer country because this little thing right here, that is a deer whistle. You go down the road and that creates a sound, theoretically, that people can't hear, but creatures do, and they get out of the way when you're coming around the corner instead of hitting them. So Dale probably lived near some wildlife.
Well, in fact, he had a ranch in Oklahoma, and he wasn't just a dime store cowboy. I mean, he had more than 200 cattle that he was running up in there. So from, you know, being a star in the Westerns, you know, Tales of Wells Fargo, he was the star of that TV show, to, you know, running real cattle. He was doing it all. $12,500 for that 1988 Chevy C1500 pickup truck. All right, one of my favorite cars rolling up on the block right now, a 1969 Opel GT.
I think this is the second one of these that I've ever seen in 18 years of doing Barrett-Jackson. And this one is beautiful, it's pure, it's not modified, and this is just beautiful. Designed and styled by General Motors, but unlike the Corvette, which has similar bones, this is steel, and that little hump, that blister right there, like a Spitfire, a World War II fighter plane, that is to clear the air cleaner. This is such a low, cloaked body shell around the mechanicals. They had to create that blister, but a beautiful piece. The only down part is the sunroof. Not factory stuff, not hard to, I mean, it's difficult to repair, but again, it's otherwise very pure.
Now, down in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they hold Auto Fair twice a year, there's an Opel GT Club that comes out and displays their cars, quite a few of them, and nicely kept. Now, that 1.9-liter engine is overhead valve, but not overhead cam, so not really highly developed for the day, but it put out just shy of 100 horsepower. What might hold this back a little bit is the transmission. It's a 3-speed automatic, not a 4-speed stick. But if you didn't have Corvette money, either to buy the car or pay the hefty insurance bill, you could sure have Corvette style, and a lot that went along with it with one of these little Opel GTs.
One thing to keep in mind is that while the body is very sexy, very Italian looking, it does ride on the bones of an Opel Kadett, which was a fairly basic vehicle. In fact, the Chevy Chevette used some of the suspension components, including the torque tube drive. But again, this is a nicely preserved vehicle, or at least nicely restored. It's correctly done. And these headlights are kind of cool. They just don't pop up and down. They rotate open. A sight to see when they're functioning.
And they're mechanical, not hydraulic. There's a lever inside. When you pull that lever, it mechanically moves that. So it's pretty interesting. $16,000 for that 1969 Opel GT. And once again, with the exception of the sunroof from the outside, looks very, very nice. Pretty solid money for an Opel GT right there. As they roll away, check out a car that's going to be coming up on the block pretty soon, a 1966 Ford Mustang. The color is Ember Glow, and they say it's been in the same family the whole time. It's got that 6-cylinder motor. We'll see it here very soon.
I would like to say how excited we are to auction the very first retail production Escalade V, VIN number 1.
We have 3 phone bidders involved in this one. Look at them lined up on the upper right-hand side of your screen. We're at $275,000 and climbing.
Vegas, I can't hear you. And 400,000 and 400,000 on it. And 500 is bid.
All right, who would have guessed 10 years ago you'd be talking about a big SUV that's 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds? $500,000, that's the final bid. And over the years, so many great cars have been sold by Barrett-Jackson for great causes. We got 2 more coming up. That Camaro you see right there, that's going to be sold this weekend, along with the Mustang next to it. Yeah, that's right. Camaro versus Mustang. We'll see which one can raise the most money for a great cause. Those will be selling Friday and Saturday here at Barrett-Jackson in Houston. Up on the block right now, we got a 1972 Dodge Challenger.
Well, first year for the no Hemi, no big block regimen. But again, this is an H code 340 Rally, which is about as good as it got, and that's okay.
Away it goes right there, $32,000 for a 1972 Dodge Challenger. But guess what? $32,000 makes that the number 2 sale of the day. Remember, we always call it entry-level day, the first day, because there's cars that sell for pretty reasonable prices, and I think that's one of them. You know, the great thing about a 72 Challenger, not one of the most popular Challengers, but for the money, you get a lot of car, a lot of eyeball. Up on the block right now, 1974 Corvette.
Well, this one has the J-code engine, in other words, the base 350 4-barrel. That's okay, backed up by an automatic turbo 400 transmission. And again, this is the last year Corvette came without catalytic converters, and kind of the last gasp before the smog 70s really kicked in. Still exciting and fun cars, but this Roadster is actually in the minority. The vast majority of Roadsters, Corvettes built in 74, were coupes, so the coupes or the convertibles like this are quite unusual.
That's true, Steve. Less than 5,500 convertibles in 1974. And now look at the center of that rear bumper. That's a unique styling feature, unique to 74, because they couldn't figure out how to mold that bumper in all one piece, so it had to be two pieces. They did get that corrected, let's say, for the next year. But no more chrome bumpers on Corvettes.
Notice, too, how the exhaust outlets are not accentuated by chrome. They're not rectangular. They're sort of tucked under there, quietly hidden, the tips right there. And again, the Smog 70s were not about high performance. If you had a V8, you didn't want to brag about it. Uncle Sam was watching.
Yeah, it started off at 195 horsepower, went all the way up to a whopping 270 horsepower when it was all said and done. $28,500 for that 1974 Corvette. All right, I understand Christian Murphy's got up with a pretty special guest.
Thank you very much, Rick. A very special guest. You know, the collector car hobby, well, it's inextricably linked to the racing world, so it's no surprise I found Santino Ferrucci out here checking out this old NASCAR. Welcome. You drove this year in an Indy car that was sponsored by Barrett Jackson. How was that experience?
Oh, it's an incredible experience, especially to be in the Indianapolis 500. It was my fourth 500, fourth consecutive year. It was my fourth consecutive top 10. To drive the Barrett Jackson Chevrolet was awesome. It was an experience for sure. Having Craig come, his wife, you know, and all of our friends to support the car it was a really big deal. We ran out front for most of the 500-mile race, and man, now it's nice to be here at returning the favor, essentially, is now I get to watch Craig work and do his job and come check out some cool cars.
Now, you were telling me some very interesting things about this NASCAR and how they're set up and how they're built. Tell me a little bit about some of the things here and that we were talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're looking at a 90s NASCAR. We were just going over how it's amazing. IndyCar is very different to NASCAR. So IndyCar is a carbon fiber monocoque. You know, they're all one-piece construction. They don't change. You know, when they change, it's a complete revamp of the car. When you're looking at a NASCAR, this chassis was used in 5 years in the 90s. It was designed for specific racetracks. And at those racetracks, you know, they cycle out. It probably raced 30 times, 35 times in its entire career. NASCAR races 30 times a year. So they will not use the same car every year like IndyCar will. We'll use the same car every single race regardless. Maybe the Indy 500 will have something that's a little bit different, but the chassis is still the same. Just the only difference is we'll tighten up the body lines to make it super aerodynamic. This car looks like it was more of a short track car. Might have started its life off as a speedway car, but over the years, when they start to become less aerodynamic, you put them at a track like Martinsville, where it's essentially bumper cars, and you go out and have a little bit of fun, and that's where Rubbin's racing.
Now, your experience in the Barrett Jackson IndyCar has led to you getting a full-time seat, right, in 2023 with the AJ Foyt Racing team. Congratulations on that. We're going to throw it back up to the block and Rick and the team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these guys are killing it out here today, and I can't wait to see this thing go. So, yeah, it's been an honor having me here, and I love being here at Barrett Jackson. Yeah, can't wait to be back full-time with AJ Foyt and Chevy.
Excellent. Back to you, Rick.
All right, thanks a lot. Yeah, don't get confused by his name, Santino Ferrucci. He's all-American, and boy, I tell you what, he does a great job at the Indy 500. Like he was mentioning, he's had an all top 10 finishes, and he'll be driving for AJ Foyt next year. Looking forward to that. Up on the block now, a 1967 Chevy Impala SS convertible.
Well, you know, it wasn't all about Chevelle SSs. The full-sizers could be had. Now, here's the deal. In full-size Chevy Impala land, SS could also mean an inline six. Not here. This is the optional 396 big block, and better still, the 4-speed manual transmission. It's all documented, all real.
Yeah, I like this one. This is the 325 horse 396. Less than 10,000 V8 Impala convertibles were built for 1967. Love the styling of this car, perhaps even more so than the 65. It still has the fender bulges, kind of like the Corvette Stingray, those very, very sharp fender peaks. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful car.
Now, this one was built at General Motors' Canadian plant in St. Therese, so that means that the paperwork on this theoretically is available through the NCRS. Don't see it shown here, but the good news is that while the American plants generally scrap their window sticker stuff, but Canadian plant did not. So the buyer of this car might want to look at the NCRS and see if the papers on this thing are still available.
I love the styling on this car. You know, this body style came out first in 1965, really jumped Chevrolet and the Impala look into a brand new bold move. 1967. And the way that one goes, Now, in just a little bit, check this out. A 1972 Chevy K10 pickup will be crossing the block. Powered by a 350 cubic inch V8. It's got a 4-speed manual transmission, 4-wheel drive. Yeah, it's all Texas. It'll be here on the block in just a little bit.
If you love cars, then be a part of the world's greatest collector car auctions. Join the enthusiasts, the action, the family. We're currently hiring for multiple positions. Put your passion for cars to work. Apply today to be a part of the Barrett-Jackson team.
Well, moments ago, a 1969 El Camino crossed the block. This one was special, though. It's an SS 396, 375 horsepower. Got everybody's attention in the room. When the bidding was over, it became the #2 seller of the day at $45,000. Our top seller of the day so far is that 1981 Jeep CJ7 Laredo Custom, followed by the El Camino. We got a Dodge Challenger up there. And don't forget, that's the Hagerty top 5 sellers. Up at the block right now, we got a 1931 Ford Model A Custom.
Well, custom is the word. It has a small block Ford under the hood, not the Chevy you sometimes see, but it is a fiberglass body, so it's a kit. Has a modern tube frame suspension, but I'm surprised to see a leaf spring front suspension with a tube axle, which is similar to what it had from the factory. But again, nothing here was made in 1931. But again, nicely done, a lot of fun.
Well, very much a period build. We see a lot of these done as kind of track roadsters without fenders and certainly without the spare tires, the dual side mounts that are on here. So very nice, nice build to evoke a long ago era 302 V8, 3-speed automatic transmission, and with a full convertible top. Wow.
Yeah, no rumble seat here. The gas tank hides where the cargo compartment would be, but again, a lot of fun.
It has that rumble seat look. It's got that little metal thing where you would stand on the rear fender as you were getting into it, although it's missing the one that would go just a little bit lower. So it looks a little bit like a rumble seat car, but it's not.
I love those Cragar SS mag wheels. First on the scene about 1964 or 5. They look like they're made of aluminum. They're actually a steel hoop with a cast aluminum center that is welded by means of integrally cast burrs. But again, these are just classic American aftermarket wheels, some of the first. That small block Ford with Ford Racing aluminum valve covers, tube steel headers, a Borgeson joint right here for the steering. Pretty cool.
The way it goes, $22,000. That gentleman right there for that 1931 Ford Model A Custom Roadster. You know, some people buy classic cars just to put them in their garage and look them. Other people, well, they buy classics to go out and race them. And that's exactly what they do every year at the Monterey Motorsports Reunion. And that's where our Mike Joy and Craig Jackson got together this year.
I'm here with Mike Joy, the voice of NASCAR and of Barrett-Jackson, but he's also a fellow Trans Am racer. You bought a new car, Mike, and tell us a little bit about, you racing with your son and this being such a family affair.
Well, that was the whole goal, Craig. We bought this car from Rob Kaufman in the spring, tested it, got it all sorted out. An opportunity presented for the Owens Corning car. Ron Treadway decided that he was done racing. He put the car up for sale 2 weeks ago, and if not now, when? Yeah. So we bought this car and we're having a blast. And just the opportunity to get on track with Scott and race against him wheel to wheel in the cars that I loved growing up.
Yeah.
He's as big a fan of this as I am.
When you walk down here, it really is memory row of the heyday of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. And
absolutely.
I see that history here and bringing a lot of these models back in their modern contemporary form today. It really is going back to that glory day of racing.
Well, the best thing about these cars is everybody recognizes them because everybody up here grew up with them either in period or, you know, their father had one or they have pictures of them at home, so everybody knows the cars. These cars are thunder and lightning. They make a lot of noise. They go fast. They slide around. And I think they are the hit of the event.
Wherever we go with these cars, I think they are the crowd favorite.
Absolutely.
Go out, drive as fast as you can and be safe for everybody and put on a good show and show this history driving around the track.
It's all for the fun and for the love of these wonderful cars.
Well, it's a great hobby. You should watch a Trans Am at a vintage car event live, or, you know, get one of these cars. Get out there and do it yourself.
This year, Scott and I got to race at Monterey, at Lime Rock, and at Watkins Glen with historic Trans Am. It's a labor of love, and if only I could keep Scott's tail lights in sight, I'd be fine. But he's a he's a lot faster than I ever thought I was.
Yeah, it's amazing what a little youth in a fast car can do. It's great, though, that you can go out and do that with your son. 1974 Plymouth Roadrunner, currently bid at $13,500.
Well, this is an interesting car. This has the RM21 Roadrunner VIN, but G in the 5th spot tells us it's a 318 two-barrel car. You got to remember, after 1970-71, if you had a muscle car, your insurance payments could be as much as your car payments if you were younger. So Plymouth and a lot of the other car makers released small block cars. This is a 318 two-barrel. Yeah, the station wagon motor, but it's backed up by a pistol grip 4-speed. This is a very rare package, assuming that it's all original. But again, RM21G, 318 Roadrunner, right here on the block.
Yeah, very interesting combination, Steve. The insurance companies are what killed the muscle car era, not gas prices or anything like that. They demand the manufacturers put an engine code in the VIN so your insurance agent could tell just what was under the hood. And as you said, the insurance premiums were staggering, and that was pretty much the end of that.
Off the 1974 Roadrunner goes. And coming up, check this out. It's a 1981 Camaro. The color is Berlinetta red. Powered by a 3.8-liter V6 engine from 1981. 3-speed automatic transmission. All the look, but what kind of power? We'll see it shortly. Well, just moments ago, a 1985 Ferrari Mondial Cabriolet crossed the block. This one a 2+2. Yep, it's a Ferrari, and it sold for solid money, $42,000. This is the one that Tyler Hoover previewed, and that is now the number 3 sale of the day. Although for a lot of Ferraris, that's not big money, so not a bad entry-level way to get into the Ferrari world. Up in the block right now, a 1928 Model A Custom.
Custom is the word. This one has a small block Chevy in place, rack and pinion front suspension, independent, of course, with coilovers, Cragar SS mags, a nice entry-level hot rod.
I got to laugh when you say entry level, Rick, because if you want a new entry level Ferrari, that would be either the Roma or the folding hardtop Portofino, and that would be over $250,000 for an entry level Ferrari today. So that was a pretty good buy. I like this Model A. Like Steve, I remember building a lot of model kits of these two-doors, they called, not TWODOR, but TUDOR is what we called these two-door sedans. Nice chop to the top. Sharp little car.
Way it goes, $19,000. I love it. It's a nice, simple look. It's be kind of a fun car to just kind of cruise around in. Rolling up behind it, this is a car we previewed just a little while ago, 1981 Camaro.
Well, you've got to remember that the Camaro is often thought of as a muscle car, the Z28, the SS396. Well, a lot of them are also what you might call a secretary special. This one has the V6 engine with an automatic, and yeah, a lot were built this way. Now, this is not a Berlinetta. This is a basic sport coupe, but again, it's a 231 cubic inch 6-cylinder right under that hood, a V6.
And Steve, I like that they have not taken the bait to try to turn this into a Berlinetta or an LT or a Z28 or anything else. This 72,000 mile car is just pretty much the way it was born. In fact, the original retail order form and the original build sheet go with the car. Factory air, power brakes, power steering, very original, all numbers matching. And I'm sorry, we do see a Berlinetta, a call out there on the trunk lid.
Interesting. Now this one here, the only lower you could get would be Radio Delete and a 3-speed manual, and yes, those were possibilities on Camaro in 1981.
Not surprising. The V8 was more popular in 1981. They sold 74,000 of the V8s, but they still sold 52,000 six-cylinders. So an awful lot of the six-cylinders were around. I'm just not sure how many of them are left.
Remember, too, that 1981 was the final year for the second-generation F-body Camaro 82. The downsizing was on. The 350 would be gone, and a lot of those were also V6 powered.
$26,000 for a 1981 Chevy Camaro that still has a 3.8-liter V6 engine. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Now, I don't know about you, but when I was watching Back to the Future, I didn't lust after the DeLorean. I lusted after the Toyota pickup truck in the garage. Now, this one's white, obviously, not black, but otherwise it is the perfect spec for me. Under the hood, a 22 RE 4-cylinder engine, also a 5-speed manual transmission inside, so you got the extra gear to where it doesn't scream on the highway with the Invincible engine. But this one is the SR5 package and a 4-wheel drive, so you get the cool stripes, you get the off-road look. You also get the extra cab, which is very handy, so you could actually recline the seats. This thing is a beautiful low mileage for a Toyota pickup truck example. Rust-free, that's the only thing that could take these things out. And this one, I don't see any of it. The only custom touches, which look really cool, the roll bar, obviously, and the bumpers, but it is basically my dream spec Toyota pickup.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Although I gotta say, I still love the DeLorean. If I gotta pick one of the two, I'm going DeLorean. But I want both of those in my garage. All right, up on the block now, something pretty interesting. A 1982 Studebaker Avante 2.
You might be wondering, Studebaker was gone after 1965 in Canada, and of course 63 here in the States. But what happened with this 1982? Well, a fellow named Nate Altman bought the tooling for the Avante when Studebaker went belly up in 63 and continued with the Avante 2. And of course, Nate Altman sold it off, and many other independent manufacturers picked up the ball. So by 1982, a lot of GM in this. No more Studebaker engine. This is a 305, but these are fiberglass, and these are styled and designed by Raymond Loewy, the guy behind the Coke bottle.
You know, people talk about the Plymouth Prowler and the Ford Retro Bird and the Chevy SSR as being the first nostalgia cars out of Detroit. Well, you better include this, because this 82 Avante 2 has the same styling as the original Avante of 1962. So let's make this the first of those nostalgia cars.
That's right, Mike. You know, of course, the Avante 2 would also live on as a 4-door and a convertible. Both things that Studebaker and Raymond Loewy envisioned in 1961, 62, but never did bring to fruition. So these are pretty cool cars. Again, fiberglass. This is America's only, the other fiberglass mass-produced car. This and Corvette.
Yeah, this is the car that really wouldn't die. Like you mentioned, it started off as a Studebaker, then evolved into the Avante 2 in various forms. We were building these all the way into the 2000s. But that styling was so advanced when it came out in its day, and frankly, it wasn't a really loved car in its day. But the fact that the styling was so unique and so different, so many companies and people tried to keep it going for a long time.
This one's very affordable at $15,000 bucks. But if you can't swing that, AMT makes a 1/25th scale version of the Avante, which is beautiful, for about 25 bucks. Grab one and build it with a kid today.
I tell you, that's a pretty interesting car right there. That gentleman just bought it for $15,000. That 1982 Studebaker Avante 2. All right, coming up, check this out. It's a 1961 Chevrolet Bel Air. It's a custom hardtop. Got a 327 cubic inch V8, 4-barrel carburetor, and a 4-speed transmission. It'll be up on the block in just a little bit.
The all-new line of Barrett-Jackson merchandise and apparel is now available. From road rallies to the office, there are many stylish options for the car lover. Available year-round or online at shopbarrettjackson.com.
It's pretty easy to have a lot of fun here at Barrett-Jackson. Honestly, if you're not having fun, you're not trying hard enough. So come on out, enjoy it. We're in Houston this time. Of course, we'll be in Scottsdale in just a few months. And if you haven't been to a Barrett-Jackson auction, Scottsdale is the one to go to if you get a chance. Up in the block right now, a 1985 Chevy C10 Custom.
Well, square bodies are coming on strong. Half-ton, two-wheel drive short bed, that's the big three. This one has the basic non-Silverado grille. I'm surprised that would have had 4 headlights. That was an option. This is the base grille with just 2 headlights. But again, 305, small block, lowered stance, American Racing torque thrust wheels.
Now, I like the way this one's been dropped. It has drop spindles in the front. Back in the day, Beltec was the biggest purveyor of those. And then they have C-notched the frame in the rear where they, to gain clearance for the rear end. They actually cut the frame. They add the reinforcements in the shape of a kind of an upside down C, so that rear end still has room to move up and down without contacting the frame. And that's how you get this drop here. Gives it a really great street stance. Does not hurt the handling of the truck at all. I approve. Nice street truck.
Yeah, spray in bed liner, textured stuff inside. Sort of an evolution. First we saw those one-piece vinyl bed liners that were great for flying out on the freeway and being really slippery when they're snowy, but they gave way to these spray-on bed liners, which are more permanent but more effective and not nearly as slippery, and they don't blow out of the truck at speed.
You know, the great thing about the collector truck part of the hobby is you can pick your decade. You like 30s, you like 40s, you like 50s, 60s, 70s. Now we're seeing the 80s come along, where in a moment we'll see the Toyota cross the block. Pick what type of pickup you like, and it's a collector car or a collector truck. $20,000, that 1985 Chevy C10 custom pickup truck with a 5-liter V8 engine. Rolling up behind it, I mentioned what kind of pickup truck do you like. In this case, this is the one that Tyler previewed, a 1986 Toyota. It's an SR5 extra cab pickup.
Well, SR5 initially arrived in the late 70s, a reference to the 5-speed manual transmission with overdrive and top gear, which was really revolutionary in the 1970s. It was all about fuel economy, so again, we have that 5-speed manual here, but this is sort of a second gen of this version. The beam axle and leaf spring seen on the ones built just a couple of years before this gave way to independent front suspension, which is okay. Some folks like this better, others like the beam and the leaf springs, but again, this is the evolution of truck building. The body on this is just about right, S10 sized, and very competitive vehicle.
So the extra cab and its Nissan counterpart, the King cab, served 2 useful purposes. One, it had flip-down, opposite-facing rear seats, which were kid-sized, but yes, they were seats. But also, taller drivers had complained that these small Japanese pickups, the standard cab, just didn't give them enough leg and headroom. So the extra cab was born, and it was just as much a boon to taller drivers as it was for pickup owners with small kids.
On the rear axle, we can see that link between the axle and the frame. That's part of the anti-lock braking system. When the nose of the truck goes down, the tail comes up. That helps to tell the system that the brakes need to go into ABS mode. Pretty cool. Leaf springs at the back of this. And again, the spray-in bed liner, saving the day and keeping it presentable. Hose it out, keep it nice.
Solid money, $30,000 for a 1986 Toyota SR5, the extra cab pickup truck. And I tell you what, we're going to see several of those crossing the block this week, so it'll be curious to see how they all do. Now, I want to check this out. This Mustang 1973, you say you can't afford to have your own pony car? I think you can. Well, you can if you can just afford to buy some stamps. Here's Christian Murphy.
What goes into selecting a forever stamp subject matter, like the pony cars?
There is a process by which the United States Postal Service receives suggestions from the American public. And the Postal Service culls through all of those submissions, and then they present them to what is called the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee. It's comprised of American citizens from all walks of life, poets, filmmakers, business folk, artists, and they meet 4 times a year, and they discuss what would make the most appropriate stamps for the American public. So once the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee has determined what those subjects are, I, along with colleagues, will do some research on the pony cars themselves. Simultaneously, I'm also looking for artists or photographers or other creatives to help bring the subject matter to life. In the case of pony cars, Tom Fritz is a master of automotive painting. He's more of an expert about these cars than I am.
How did you arrive at these pony cars, these models, makes years specifically?
I would confess that the 5 that we chose are a judgment call based on several experts weighing in.
What do you really think sort of resonates with these vehicles?
What resonates for me personally is my own love of cars broadly when I was young. I remember I had an uncle who had a 1969 Mustang. That's the first car I remember falling in love with when I was growing up. And so for me, of course, it resonates with being a boy in America and loving cars. And I hope for these stamps that not only are older folks like myself able to remember the fun, the beauty, the excitement of pony cars, but maybe a new audience can be introduced to these lovely cars, and maybe a younger generation will pick up the mantle of celebrating the automotive world.
You know, just a few years ago, they had muscle car stamps. Now they've come back with the pony car stamps because the audience wants them. Americans want car stamps, which is pretty cool. So it's like a Trans Am collection. That's what's so great about that. And I have to say, I already have some of those at home. I put them on envelopes that I'm mailing out for thank you notes. Up on the block now, a 1961 Chevy Bel Air Custom that we previewed just a little while ago.
Well, 61 and 2 bubble tops, as they call these, are iconic vehicles. Really amazing. Such a slender A and B pillar right here. Now, the rollover protection standards that we know today didn't exist. Not that you're going to think about negative things like that, but again, very beautiful design here. Bubble window, just delicious. Nice looking car.
Kind of looks like it has the Impala side trim there with the contrast, but that's correct for Bel Air. Would have been wider on the Impala, and there it goes. Rick, I am a stamp collector since a very young age. Learned most of my American history from stamps, and have the stamps you spoke of. And remind folks, these are commemorative stamps. They're available at any post office, but only for a limited time. So go get them.
Already have, absolutely. Up on the block now, a 1991 AM General Hummer Custom.
Well, you got to remember, these were born for military use, and it's hard as it might be to imagine something this massive is a 2+2. Yep, 4 people, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. That's because the engine and drivetrain creates a big tunnel going right down. That's all about the high center right there. Go right over a tree stump or whatever you have to. And again, the portal drive, wherein the drive axle comes in above the center line. It's all about the architecture. So again, the middle of these things is in the way. So you seat 4 in this thing, or you sit on each other's lap.
Yeah, portal drive is really interesting, and that came about from the Hummer. I believe I read recently on Jalopnik that someone has introduced a portal drive for the new Ford Bronco, if you can imagine that. Now, I'm a little confused by the car card here because it describes this as a street-legal off-road machine, but then in big capital letters, it says not to be registered for highway use.
Yeah, the car cards are very good in giving you that information, and I'm really curious what that means. It's probably holding the value of this back because, once again, it's a little on the odd side, and it just says, once again, not to be registered for highway use. By the way, we're going to see a lot of Hummers, Humvees, from the military version, the civilian spec versions, the H1s, the H2s, and even the modern Hummer EVs crossing the block during the course of the next few days here at Barrett-Jackson. $14,500 for that one. Barrett-Jackson.com, that's the place to go to find the full list of cars that will be crossing the block over the course of the next couple days. You can do a lot of research and check out the prices for the cars that have already sold as well. Well, we were talking about pony cars. We got one up on the block, a 1973 Mustang convertible.
If you want a Mustang convertible, if you didn't want to wait a full decade, 73 was the last year. When the Mustang 2 miniature Mustang arrived in 74, no more convertibles. This one here is an H code 351 with the Ram Air hood. It's not a Mach 1, but again, if you want a Mustang convertible, this is the last year, 73 until 83.
A lot of modifications on this one. Headers and Flowmaster exhaust, a Global West front suspension, different digital gauges, Corbeau seats. An awful lot of personalization has gone into this one. 71 through 73 was the term for this particular body style in two-door hardtop, two-door convertible, and sport roof versions.
The amazing thing is when the Mustang 2 arrived in 1974, based on the Pinto, you got to remember we were just 1 year away from the 1973 OPEC fuel crisis, wherein the price of gasoline doubled, and suddenly a small Mustang made sense. And those things sold 400,000 units in 1974. So it was the right car at the right time. But we don't remember those as much as we remember these.
Yeah, and you think about it, I mean, in 1973, they only sold 130,000 of this generation of Mustang for this year. And of those, I think just a little less than 12,000 were the convertibles. And frankly, you know, it may not be the highest in performance, but it's still a great car for the looks, and you look at for the money. I mean, here we're sitting at $22,000. What a great entry-level car to get into the collector car hobby. And this one shows very well. $22,000 for a 1973 Ford Mustang convertible, the end of the line, the last one before the Mustang 2 came out. Checking out the Maguire staging lanes. All those cars lined up out there. Trucks, we got all kinds of stuff that'll be crossing the block. We got about another hour to go of our coverage here on FYI. Barrett-Jackson does a lot more than just sell amazing vehicles. They drive them too. You know, last month, Barrett-Jackson Road Tours embarked on a 9-day, 2,200-mile journey. They started in Parker, Colorado, finished up in Des Moines, Iowa. More than 50 lucky participants drove their own collector vehicles on the tour. They soaked up some of the beauty of America's scenic routes, along with some automotive destinations along the way. It was just a great way to enjoy the camaraderie of other car enthusiasts. Those are some of the cars that'll be coming up on the block as we go through the course of the week on Super Saturday. That's the Salon Collection. Yeah, a couple of Ford GTs will be bringing big, big money. Up on the block right now, we got a 1986 GMC Suburban. This is a custom SUV.
Yeah, this one's been given a lift kit and spray-on bed liner in sort of a camouflage beige. But again, the Suburban, one of the oldest names in auto history, going back to 1934.
That roof rack is 7 feet long. Gives you an idea of the scale of this thing, and it's designed as a go-anywhere vehicle, so probably should attract a lot of attention here in Texas. Lift kit, 33-inch tires, lots of added lights and accessories inside as well.
Interesting details that in 1988, when the GMT 400 pickup truck replaced this styling cycle, Suburban continued using these older bones for several more years. And again, these are 4 doors, whereas the Suburban that came from 72 and earlier was a 3-door, 2 on the curb side, 1 on the driver's side, but the 4 doors on these made them far more useful. And at the back, the rear doors open up to expose plenty of cargo room and seating for about 10 people.
As I remember back in those days, you had your choice. You could either get the doors in the back or you could get the tailgate as well. It just boiled down to what did you think was the best way to handle your family or whatever task you were doing in that Suburban.
You can see remnants of the original sort of burnt orange paint inside. So again, you know, this is sort of a fun machine, but $22,000, a lot of fun.
It's got that desert tan rhino liner on the outside, so you know, we often say it hides a lot of sins underneath, but it looks fine. It looks like a fun vehicle, and it's, you know, relatively indestructible. $22,000 for a 1986 GMC Suburban Custom SUV. All right, before they sell the cars here at Barrett-Jackson, they do what they call the automobilia. Check this out, a parking meter. That's right, a parking meter sold this morning for $2,500. Of course, it was what they call the dual head, it had both of them right there. And then, in addition to that, there was a Harley-Davidson dealer sign. Now, not surprisingly, it brought much more money, $5,250. Harley-Davidson always sells. And then gas pumps, always a big staple of the automobilia. This one from the 40s and 50s, a Phillips 66 gas pump, $6,700. So once again, the automobilia craze, we've seen some of the prices on these things, well over $100,000. But once again, today's entry-level day, so the price is not quite as high. Up on the block right now, a 1993 Chevy Blazer Custom.
Well, the first generation Blazer had a leaf spring front suspension and a beam axle. These went to torsion bars and independent front suspension. When we come around to the side, we'll see one of the problematic details about these. When you want to lift it, you have to lower the anchor point for the rear mount of the torsion bar. Seen here, this is an add-on to bring that torsion bar down lower so it doesn't operate on a weird angle. So when you lift these things, you get a little more surgery involved than just shackles and lift blocks.
You're right, Steve. Rough Country makes that kit. It's a 6-inch lift on this. I had one of these, and the only complaint I ever had about it was that the fairly short wheelbase on a truck this heavy gave it a pretty choppy ride going down the highway. Like this is probably much better suited to off-road work.
It has been perked up a little bit. The 350 engine's been given headers and dual exhaust, so probably good for 250 horsepower, which is plenty to move this wherever it's got to go. Popular deletion at the back is the rear bumper. Now it has a fill panel here for the rear valance made out of steel, but again, this wouldn't ordinarily have a bumper. GM could not sell it like this, but you can certainly customize it to your tastes.
You know, this was getting close to the end of the Blazer run. You know, it started off, I think, back in '69 or so, ran for quite some time, and then technically the Blazer was replaced by the Tahoe, but now the Blazer is back. Away it goes, $16,500 for 1993 Chevy Blazer. Well, if you'd like to try and sharpen your bidding skills and perhaps snag a great prize in the process, you want to play the Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. Right now, Tyler Hoover is going to preview one of the cars that you can predict the price.
Well, selling on Saturday is a legendary 3 numbers right here, 442. This one, a very special one, a 1971 convertible 442, one of 1,300 convertibles, and one of the last 2 years of the big 455, and this is numbers matching. But it's a very well optioned car too. You see the air conditioning in there, but also you go inside with the beautiful white top and white vinyl interior. We'll get in there here in a second. See the sport bucket seats, the sport steering wheel, and the tick-tock tack. See the clock inside of the tachometer. So this is a really special piece of muscle car royalty right here with the numbers matching engine, a beautiful restoration. Place your bets.
Well, thanks, Tyler. That old 442 will cross the block this Saturday, so you want to register to play now. Now, terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 to play. Visit BarrettJacksonFantasyBid.com for official rules. Who knows? You could walk away with the grand prize, a 2022 Dodge Challenger. Back up to the auction block. Got another Corvette. Seen quite a run of C4 Corvettes today, but frankly, they all look pretty good. And for the money, once again, this is a great little car.
Yeah, 10 years in, of course, 84 first year, 94 10th year, and would go till 96. And then, of course, the C5 would arrive to replace it. LT1 on the back, kind of a cool little add-on. And this, of course, has the original exhaust outlet. It's kind of a rare treat. Most folks will replace these over the years with some billet aluminum, but that's how they look when these cars were new.
One thing I like they've done here is these are ZR1 front wheels all the way around on a standard Corvette body, just as I did on my 95. They were wider, they were lighter, and I thought they looked better too.
$18,000 once again for a fun performance car. Yeah, not the most in terms of horsepower, but still looks great. Why not? We'll be back. Be a part of another record-breaking year at the world's greatest collector car auctions. Consign today. Add your collector car to the world-class selection at the Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale auction, January 21st through the 29th at Westworld. Visit barrett-jackson.com or call 480-421-6694. We are definitely in Texas this week. Barrett-Jackson arriving here for a 3-day auction. About 500 cars crossing the block, all of them at no reserve. Up there right now, a 2007 Maserati Quattroporte, and I love the color on this one. Bordeaux Pontevecchio metallic.
Yeah, beautiful car, the Executives Express. Again, that heart of a Ferrari under that hood.
14-way adjustable front seats on this one. I think Porsche will now sell you a car with 18-way adjustable buckets. The aficionados call them sofas. And why not? Beautifully polished 19-inch wheels there. Skyhook independent suspension is what it's called. And this one with just under 57,000 actual miles. A lot of life left in it, and gorgeous, just gorgeous interiors in these cars. Wherever you're driving them to, you want to just stay there and just kind of soak in the smell of that leather and all of that opulence inside.
I gotta say, the nose of this is such a graceful design. Again, the bumper's built in 30 years before, when those beam bumpers, the 5-mile-per-hour railroad ties, were imposed on automakers. I couldn't imagine this would have come back, but clearly this passes all crash regimen, but beautiful, hiding in plain sight front bumper. Just a delicious design.
I love that 14-way adjustable seats. I think my first car was maybe a 1-way adjustable seat. I think I could slide the seat maybe an inch or two forward, and that was about it. Like you say, I mean, these days it's all about comfort and the ability to have all those different options. These days we've got massaging seats as well.
That grille design goes all the way back to 1965. The Maserati 3000 GT had that exact same grille shape with the little dip right at the top center. And then, of course, the Maserati Trident, very prominent in the center of the grille. So that's a great styling touch that's been brought back nearly 40 years later.
Yeah, it's interesting how Maserati has done a great job adapting to the times, whether it's with the 4-door or the Quattroporte or with the SUV. You know, they're using that Ferrari engine and figuring out new ways to attract new audiences. $19,500 for a 2007 Maserati Quattroporte. All right, we talked earlier about how we'd pick one year as a spotlight year. It's 1965 here in Houston, the year the Houston Astros got their name. So Mike Joy has found an interesting car from 1965.
Chevy's first try at the El Camino was unsuccessful. It was too big. It was the size of a full-size pickup but wouldn't haul very much. When Chevy introduced the Chevelle, that was the right size for this car/pickup sport utility. In 1965, they sold 35,000 of these, and the right size El Camino would continue on for another 22 years. Party in the front, business in the back. El Camino.
That's one of the cars that we'll see crossing the block tomorrow during our Friday coverage here on FYI. And I have to mention that the number 2 sale of the day so far here on Thursday, yep, it's an El Camino from 1969, an SS, sold for $45,000. Up in the block right now, a 1990 Mazda MX-5 Miata.
Well, the Guinness Book of World Records verified the Miata is the world's best-selling sports car, something like 250,000. But again, it all started right here, 1990. A very pure example. This one is being submitted by our cohort, Tyler Hoover. This is from his garage, but a clean example with under 30,000 miles.
Note the optional wheels, which were designed to evoke the British 8-spoke Minilite wheel. If you wanted a first-year 1.6-liter Miata such as this, you had 3 color choices: red, white, or a medium blue. No metallic colors. I mean, that was it. The MGB had previously been the world's best-selling sports car, but it didn't take long for the Miata, with its twin-cam engine, its 4-wheel disc brakes, and slick-shifting 5-speed, to steal that crown from MG.
You know, Mike, it was almost not to be. Initially, there was a fight within Mazda. This was going to be a front-wheel drive platform. There was a fight, and MX stands for Mid-Engines Experimental 5-Speed. And believe it or not, the engine is so far back in the drivetrain, it's kind of mid-engine, but not really. But again, there was an initial idea of front-wheel drive, which probably would not have made it as successful as it is.
You know, I recall when these first came out, the first ones that hit the dealerships, people were paying a premium on them. And I remember thinking, well, how long can this be popular for? And here we are still seeing MX-5, Miatas, whatever you want to call them, bringing good money here at Barrett-Jackson and selling brand new.
And this is the first generation and the only generation with hideaway headlights.
$25,000. Congratulations. Solid money for a first-generation MX-5 Miata. And we might mention that was part of the Tyler Hoover collection. He's brought 5 cars that he's selling this week, and that's one of them. Coming up, something a little bit larger. Check this out. A 1976 Lincoln Continental Mark IV. Yeah, it's a beast. It's a factory color of cream with gold crushed velour interior. It's got a white full vinyl roof. It'll be up on the block before too long. What are you looking for here at Barrett-Jackson? You want trucks? Yeah, we got them. We got them lifted. We got them slammed. They are all over the place here at the NRG Center. Remember, we're in day 1 of a 3-day Barrett-Jackson collector car auction. Today's the fun day, entry-level day. Look at the cars we've seen cross the block. I think we just set a new world record for a first-generation Mazda Miata at $25,000. Oh, that's just my thought. It might not be right. 79 Toyota pickup, that VW Dune buggy, and up on the block right now, another pickup truck, an 87 Chevy K10 Custom.
Well, kind of a special year. 87 was the final year for the square body, 73 through 87. Of course, the final year for the beam axle and leaf springs. This one does have steering stabilizers. The GMT 400 of 88 would be a whole different creature with the independent front suspension, torsion bars. But again, this is a great example of the breed. And again, this is a short bed, half-ton. This is where the money's at.
The tires, the wheels, and the shocks have been replaced. 350 fuel injected overdrive transmission, and 83,000 miles on the clock. So well kept and nicely upgraded.
Now, one interesting detail, this one does have the twin tank feature. We'll see the gas filler on the passenger side. There's also one on the driver's side. And that's convenient in one way because when you pull up to the pump, well, either side can fill. But the bad side is if you want to fill both of them, you either drag the hose over the truck or you move away and pull in. By the time you've done that, somebody's taken your spot. Now, Ford had both gas entries on the driver's side. You choose which one you need.
The main thing was you had the ability to fill it up and get that extra mileage out of it. And the way these things were drinking gas back then, you were going to need that, especially if you were running 4-wheel drive for very long. $29,000 the current bid. And I'd love to know the story behind this. I mean, here this is a 1987 K10. Why only 83,000 miles? Was it driven hard early on and then parked? Was it just slowly driven over the years? All right, truck, tell me the stories. If only it could talk.
Yeah, this one has the 350 with fuel injection, standard stuff. 4-speed automatic, which is a nice touch, which came along in the mid-80s for better fuel economy and overdrive on the highway. I remember I worked at Ragsdale Chevrolet in 1986, and the word came out that the new GMC and Chevy pickups were going to have independent front suspension. There was a run on these right here. People who used snowplows back in New England didn't want the independent suspension, so these were in very high demand, as they are still.
Growing up in LA, we didn't have that problem. $30,000 for that one. All right, let's check in with Christian Murphy.
As you know, Rick, over the last year, we've crisscrossed America, uncovering the deep and unlikely friendships built around a shared love of collector cars. In shooting the series, United We Drive, there was one thing that collector car enthusiasts kept on referring to:
This is a piece we like to call therapy rides.
Something about getting on the road and just riding that kind of puts you at ease. It's better than sitting on the couch talking to a therapist I don't even know.
That is a perfect, a perfect way of putting it. It's very therapeutic.
For me, this is the way to disconnect. This is the way to clear my mind, to relax.
It's funny because you can have a bad day at work that you just want to forget about. No matter if it's a 5-minute drive or an hour drive, it all is it's out the window, just enjoying you in the car and nothing else matters.
So I'm an air traffic controller. When you're talking about having hundreds of people's lives in your hands at any given moment, being able to get off of work, come home, and go straight to my garage, I mean, that's the best form of therapy that I have at my disposal right now.
When you work on them and you build them, and you get to take them out and you're just out driving, just cruising around, that is your therapy.
It's almost like I've become one with my car. And I can feel the horsepower, I can feel bumps in the road, I can feel how my tires are grabbing the ground, and it's just like, it's relaxing to me. It's just this vehicle running, the music playing, the wind blowing, and that's it. They're probably the best therapy you can get.
Now that just so resonates with me. Even back in college, if I'd had a rough day or just had a ton of homework or just needed a break, I would get in, hop in that Mini Cooper or whatever car I had, and the drive became the destination. It really was therapeutic. Now if I go out to the garage, grab the key to that Porsche and turn the key and the exhaust valves open, and I hear that thing with the sport exhaust going, and all the neighbors hear it too, I can't help but smile. It really is therapy.
Yeah, growing up in Los Angeles, I remember when I got my first car, a Bug-Eye Sprite, going through Topanga Canyon or Mulholland, it was therapy. And whether it's the modern Mustang convertible that I drive today or my BMW Isetta, when I drive by, everybody smiles. It's therapy both for me and the people I go past.
I say for me, I'm kind of a drag racer, and living in Los Angeles, I used to go to Pomona or down to out to Bakersfield or even Carlsbad. Now I'm in Massachusetts, Lebanon Valley or New England Dragway for an afternoon of bracket racing. I love drag racing. That's how I unwind when I can.
Cars are fun. Might as well enjoy them, and I agree, they are therapy. All right, a little while ago, we previewed this 1976 Lincoln Continental Mark IV. Now it's up on the block.
Yeah, very, very near the end when downsizing was just around the corner. Got to remember, 1976 was the year between the 73 and 79 OPEC oil shocks. So big cars like this that got 11 miles to the gallon were not very popular. But believe it or not, these still sold in strong numbers. But Detroit would be forced into downsizing. So if you want a big Lincoln right here, one of your last chances on the block.
Yeah, look at the length of that hood. I think that hood is about as long as a couple of the dune buggies that have crossed the block today. Now, this is a very well kept and preserved car, 460 V8, 3-speed automatic, but only 25,000 actual miles in, what, 46 years? Wow, that's nothing.
Of course, the term Continental is a play on the spare tire, the Continental kit, which was used in 56 and 7, and of course in 41 through 48.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a pretty interesting car. The Summit Racing sold sticker goes on. Away it goes for $16,000. Think about it per pound. That's a pretty good deal. Let's check in with April Rose.
Hey, Rick, I've got a truck that's going across tomorrow. Now, the future is here. 2022 Hummer EV Edition 1, VIN number 5. Beautiful, fully electric. If you can believe it, I mean, this thing, a fully electric vehicle, unreal. This light bar up here actually recognizes the owner, and it'll light up as you approach. But the headlights are down here, so they're not pissing off other drivers. I also got to show you inside because there's a huge tribute to the Apollo 11 moon landing, and you have the Sea of Tranquility and the speaker right here with Neil Armstrong's boots right there. You also have some more of the moon topography on the bottom there. And it's just unbelievable what they've done to this car, to this truck. 1,000 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And there's a bunch of little treasure hunt Easter eggs here. You'll see H's hidden throughout this vehicle. It is unbelievable, and it's going across tomorrow. Rick, you're not going to want to miss this puppy.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I mean, we've got several of them that'll be crossing the block over the course of the next couple of days, but it's the performance from that is really, truly impressive. Up in the block right now, a 1983 Oldsmobile 98 Regency.
You know, there's a time when these were as common as dirt, but like time, it cleanses the palate. Now it's special to see one of these, and this is a very low-mile car, under 46,000 miles. It's bone stock, unrestored, very original. It's special, I have to say. Unusual to see something like this.
So what was a Regency? Honestly, it was a Cadillac with an Oldsmobile grille. You know, back when these were new, Oldsmobile dealers were not also Cadillac dealers. They wanted a big luxury car, and this was it.
Well, $10,500 for a car that, once again, you're not going to see very many of them, so that's an interesting buy. All right, Mike just mentioned Cadillac. Let's pull one up, a 1960 Cadillac Fleetwood 60 Special.
Well, the final year for tail fins right here, and 59 was a little higher, but again, here they are in their final go-around. And this one's kind of interesting. It's a Biarritz. We see the logo on the bottom. The hubcaps are included. You can see they're being brought up to the stage here, and here's one of the hubcaps right here. Beautiful piece. Looks like a flying saucer from Plan 9 from outer space. But again, not on the car. Don't know why. But anyway, it kind of looks like a custom. But the vinyl roof on this, beautiful car, massive.
Yeah, looks a little funny to see this with the wide whites and the body color steel wheels and caps. Those fender skirts, of course, that was part of the package. Those tail lights with the vertical stainless steel surround for 1960, they would go horizontal for 61 but retain the same tail fins, and which would get shorn almost completely for 62 and beyond. But yeah, maybe they wanted to show off the newly painted steel wheels. That's the only reason I can think of not putting those full hubcaps on them. And the tires are brand new as well.
Here's a scenario. I used to ride skateboards. I still do once in a while. You're coming down a hill, and you're veering toward a Cadillac like this. And this rear quarter panel's right here. Let's say you bump into that. That's not going to be pretty. Now, of course, in Europe, they started with pedestrian safety modifications, but this is something that you would not want to smack into if you just got thrown off your skateboard. Just saying.
Yeah, or your bicycle. I've run into the back of a few cars on bicycles. Wouldn't want to do that. $30,000 for a 1960 Cadillac Fleetwood 60 Special. Tell you what, it's not a show car, but it's got everything right. All those sprite work looks good. Yeah, not bad. All right, this is Houston. We just talked about those Hummers with the special moon touches. If you ever get a chance, you got to check out the Space Center here in Houston. It's a great tour. If you get a chance, you can see all of the rockets that they used to use to launch people to the moon. We'll be right back.
The all-new line of Barrett-Jackson merchandise and apparel is now available. From road rallies to the office, there are many stylish options for the car lover. Available year-round or online at shopbarrettjackson.com.
Just a little over 15 minutes left in our FYI coverage of the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction from Houston on Thursday. Remember, we have 2 full days of coverage on Friday and Saturday. Up on the block right now, we've got a 2006 BMW 650i convertible.
Well, this is BMW's full-size platform. A little while ago, we saw an M6, which had a V10, not available here. This is standard with the V8, a 4.8-liter engine under the hood.
So these started out as the 645 through 2005. The engine got a bump to 4.8 liters displacement for 2006. That's what we have here. Made it to a 6-speed automatic. An Executive Express, this one with less than 72,000 actual miles. I had the coupe version of this. Great long-legged touring car.
And again, Chris Bangle's flame surfacing, wherein the way that the metal reflects light was most of why and how the shapes are formed into it. And this really triggered a wave of not Me Too's, but everything from Mercedes to Toyota aped this basic design where flame surfacing was the theme.
The 6 Series around for a long time. First came out back in 1976. I always remember because my boss at the TV station I first worked at had a 6 Series. And we had this massive mobile phone in the trunk, but I thought that was the coolest car, and I've always loved the 6 Series as a result. Let's check in with Tyler Hoover with a quick preview.
Well, the badge doesn't lie. It does have nitrous. You see it in the back, just like the Gone in 60 Seconds car, because this is an authorized replica of the Gone in 60 Seconds 67 GT500. You look inside, and you have the Go Baby Go, just like in the movie, to activate the nitrous. Now, we see a lot of these sell at Barrett-Jackson, these authorized Eleanor replicas from the film with Nick Cage. But I'm always curious. There's always a different motor under the hood, and this one's pretty special. It's a 390 V8, but you see the big giant supercharger here. So you really need that and the nitrous. I mean, this thing really will go, baby, go. I imagine it'll do very well on the block Friday.
It goes, and it looks great. It's got everything you could ask for. Once again, we'll see that coming up on the block tomorrow during our FYI coverage of the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. Interesting motorcycle up on the block right now, a 1969 Norton 750, but this one is a Dunstall Atlas motorcycle.
Right, the consignor describes it. Paul Dunstall was sort of the Carroll Shelby of Norton motorcycles. This will go 135 miles an hour. Look at this right here. This is a preloader right here for the discs inside of the forks to help dampen. At 135, you can get a tank slapper going on, a speed wobble, so you can tighten this thing down if you're going to go for a speed run. Kind of cool.
Well, these bikes were built to order for customers. The frame gets nickel plated. The gas tank fenders, seat, rear wheel, exhaust, foot pegs, brake levers, etc. were all replaced, and upgrades for both handling and performance. Different pistons, valves. I mean, why didn't they just build a brand new bike? Valves, valve springs, carburetors, and that bumped the horsepower from a stock 49 up to 66. And this bike would do 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds with a top speed of 130 miles per hour. At your own risk.
Yeah, Dunstall actually became a manufacturer of sorts, because that way he was able to race these as a manufacturer as opposed to just tuning them and making them so they weren't legal anymore. When the British motorcycle industry began to fade, obviously the Dunstall Nortons began to fade, but he switched over and was tuning Japanese motorcycles for a while before he eventually moved on to other things.
I'm mostly a four-wheel person. I had one motorcycle in my life back in 1987. I had a Honda CX500, liquid-cooled V-twin shaft drive, and I drove it for one summer and realized you're going to ride like you're invisible, not invincible. There's a difference. That's why I'm still here.
$6,700 for a 1969 Norton 750 Dunstall Atlas. Pretty cool motorcycle. Great history behind that. 1998 Chevy Silverado 1500 pulling up behind it. This one's interesting, though. This is a Z71.
Yeah, Z71 was the off-road package, which included taller springs, stiffer shock absorbers, stiffer leaps in the back, and these special wheels with larger tires. But again, this is another extended cab. This one has, of course, a V8 with 5.7 liters, automatic transmission. And the tow hooks in the nose, again, part of the Z71 package right there to get you out of a bind.
Yeah, Steve, like you, I grew up in southern New England. And when I'd go to the Chevy dealer to test drive trucks to figure out what to buy, I quickly learned that I did not want the Z71, for the frost heave and winter pockmarked roads of New England. Not a great choice. Now, maybe here in Texas, these things would go across the super slab or go off-road just fine. But up north, I would say you Z71 kind of at your own risk. This one, for having nearly 97,000 miles on the clock, looks very well kept. And the step side bed, the fleet side, was much more often seen than this particular bed.
Dual exhaust in this one is an add-on. At this point in time, pretty much every pickup truck still had a single outlet because, again, single catalytic converter is less expensive than two catalytic converters, but this has probably been equipped with headers and a full-length dual exhaust for another 10 or 15 horsepower.
You know, we look at this and you realize it seems to us like a modern truck, right? It's 1998. This is 24 years old. That means if you were graduating high school in 1980, this is the kind of thing you were looking at a 1956 Chevy and thinking, oh, that's so old. So some kid who's graduating right now and, you know, the year 2022 is going to look at that 1998 and go, oh, that's ancient right there. $12,500 for a 1998 Chevy Silverado Z71 pickup truck. Time for us to step away for just a moment. We're going to check out what's going on in Houston because we got cars everywhere and just a few left across the block on our FYI coverage here on Thursday at Barrett-Jackson. We're in Texas this week where everything's bigger, even the Hummers. Yeah, look at this thing. It goes on forever with that trailer. They call it a Humvee, a Hummer. It is long, large, and in charge. Out in the McGuire staging lane, just a few cars left as we go through our Thursday docket. All the vehicles left across the block. We're coming towards the end of our coverage here on FYI. But don't forget, we got 2 full days left to go. Up on the block now, a 2010 BMW 750 Li.
So BMW got a little confusing with their badging because back 10 years before this, the 40 was the V8 and the 50 was the V12. But by this year, 50 meant the V8. The L, always the long wheelbase. This one, a great Gentleman's Express cruiser. Looks very stock, other than the wheels, which they have the BMW badges on them, but I like them, kind of a turbine shape.
Yeah, unlike Mercedes, who only brought the long wheelbase version of their S-Class to the United States, you could get the BMW 7 Series in the short or long wheelbase, such as this one. This one's had the M Sport Aero package added, along with those aftermarket 22-inch wheels, but 400 horsepower out of that 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8, yeah, that's enough.
Remember, of course, the first 750 IL or LI arrived in the mid-'80s, V12 powered. It was the first mass-produced car with drive-by-wire throttle technology.
Yeah, we were talking about Chris Bangle and his designs in the Bangle butt. Well, the response was so polarizing with those that this was sort of the revised styling. And in the rear, they softened up that butt a little bit, made it smoother, so people quit screaming about it. They also revised the iDrive. It was another complaint with these, the early computer infotainment system, which really not many auto manufacturers had tried out yet. BMW was one of the first. It was very clunky with that knob, but by this year, still very good.
Well, they thought they had it sold. The hammer was coming down. They got one more bid jumped in. And away it goes. And the Summit Racing sold sticker goes on. And away it goes for $22,500. And away we're going to go to Christian Murphy.
Thank you very much, Rick. As day one winds down, we're here with the head honchos, Craig Jackson, Chairman and CEO, Steve Davis, the President. That was a quick 4 hours. Lots of great diversity, but some great stories crossing the block today.
There were. Tyler seemed very happy with his Miata.
Well, that might be a world record for a Miata.
It could be.
Steve, I hope some of your bidders have kept their powder dry because tomorrow things move up a little bit.
Absolutely. That's kind of the Barrett-Jackson way. We want to have a day and a carved out time so everybody wanting to get into the hobby and that entry-level kind of feeling where they can come to Barrett-Jackson, have the experience without spending multiples of 6 figures. So something for everybody, but tomorrow we take it up a few notches, absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, we couldn't be more excited. We are running a little low on time. We'll take it back up to the block, but thank you. Looking forward to tomorrow.
All right, see you.
All right, thanks a lot, Murph. Let's check out the top sellers for the day. Number 3, it's a Ferrari, not surprisingly. In this case, a 1985 Mondial, $42,000. The number 2 seller, Now, that Ferrari was beat out by an El Camino from 1969. This is an SS, sold for $45,000. But the number one seller of the day, really interesting, a 1981 Jeep CJ7 Laredo. It's a custom. It sold for $60,000. What's so interesting? It still has the original 6-cylinder engine inside. Not a big V8, not a big power plant transplant. Up on the block, a 2005 Mercedes-Benz. This is an SLK 350 Launch Edition.
Yes, this was the first year of the new SLK, the second generation, and they styled the nose to look like the big SLR McLaren. We have one of those, a Roadster, selling on Saturday. Hardtop convertible, great cars.
$11,000, that's the price for that Launch Edition 2005 Mercedes-Benz SLK 350 with that AMG Mercedes-looking nose. Got another Mercedes rolling up behind it, a 2006 CLK 350 Cabriolet.
So they actually had 3 Mercedes convertibles offered at one point. I think they still do today. The SLK was the smallest one. They had the SL, and then you had this one, the CLK. And unlike the other two, it has a cloth convertible top since it was much larger, and that gave you room to have a back seat since it could fold up a little bit tighter.
So you see aftermarket wheels here. Those are 20s, leather and walnut interior. Plenty of room for 4. More a boulevard car than a sports car, but very capable. And I'm sure whatever the odometer says is going to greatly affect the price on this one.
Yes, this one is the smallest engine, the 350, a 3.5-liter V6, but this body got the treatment all the way up to AMG, the CL63 Black Series, where they made these into a wide-body, 2-seat car. Really cool vehicle.
And some strong bidding at the very end. Price not going super high, but a couple of bidders coming in at the last moment. Well, that is going to do it for today for our 4 hours of live coverage from Barrett-Jackson, Houston. We will be back tomorrow for 7 straight hours of auction action here on FYI. You won't want to miss it because the cars are going to get better and better. So for Mike Joy, Steve Magnante, Tyler Hoover, April Rose, and Christian Murphy, I'm Rick DeBrohl. Thanks for riding along with us today.